Oh, you just left, Michael.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. How was your time down at the beach? Did you sell a lot more?
I did not sell too many more. I sold four smaller paintings. So, but they were only allowed to allow like 10 to 13 people in at a time. So it's a little bit interesting.
Oh, that's different, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. But it
Oh,
was fun.
well,
Got
that's
a lot of
good.
nice people, and hopefully people will go back. Sometimes it takes a couple times or a little bit of time, especially for the big paintings.
Right. So did you see Michelle? Because she was planning on being down there this weekend.
Yeah, she came by on Sunday, which was really neat because she got to meet my parents who were down there with my aunt and uncle, and turns out they're neighbors.
Oh
Michelle
my goodness sakes.
are not quite neighbors, but live close to each other.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So you're a native Oregonian then?
Yep, born in Astoria, raised in Lebanon.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I
I've
was,
lived a couple other places. Lived in Australia for a while twice, and
wow. No, I'm a native Oregonian, and I've lived in Tennessee and Pennsylvania and Illinois, and then
okay,
back here to Oregon. So,
right on. I've never been to all those places, but we are going to Illinois in June for a wedding.
I've been to 48 of the 50 states.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
And, they all have a beauty. It's all different. Like Illinois will drive you crazy because it's so flat. I moved back there and I had just joined a group of women, and this one gal was having a tea at her house, and she said, "Oh, it's easy to find." She said, "You just go down," and she gave me the route number. And then she said, "My house is the one on the hill." And I thought, "Oh,
Hmm,
okay." I drove past it like 3 times because the hill must have been 3 feet high. I'm not kidding.
that is hilarious.
It was just, I was laughing. I was laughing.
There we go.
So, yeah, but they each have their own beauty. It's kind of funny.
For sure.
But
That's really cool.
unfortunately, most of the time I had a camera that I had to develop the film. So, but I've seen something now that you can actually turn the negatives from your camera film into what do they call it now? I guess digital. You could make them go digital with some kind of little gizmo. I don't know how good it
Right.
is.
Yeah. I've seen like different kinds of slide scanners and different things. I know Costco was doing it for a while.
Oh, really?
Different services online. And I
Oh,
don't think it was Costco directly. I just think they.
they sent it out someplace and you got it back probably. You didn't comment on
Yeah.
my beach scene. I figured it was a busy weekend for you. So, and I didn't put it up till late. But I had a
Yeah, it looks
question.
like a lot of people put up pictures yesterday
Yeah,
afternoon, which I didn't see. I spent yesterday morning a couple hours going through and looking at everybody's work and leaving
yeah,
comments, and I even did some Photoshop manipulation of a couple of them.
I saw that. Yeah, I need to learn how to use Photoshop. Is there anybody that you would suggest taking a class from? Because I took it from this one guy. He was horrible. He was not a teacher at all.
Uh,
And this one guy had the newest Canon camera. I can't remember what it was called, but he was so enamored with the camera that he spent all of his time talking to the guy practically. He was just miserable teacher. So
uh,
I was kind of like, maybe I don't even want to get into this stuff, but I think I would really like to get into it.
yeah, and I just use it so rudimentarily, like just so basic, and it's my version of Photoshop is so old, but I'm scared to update it because if I update it, then they start charging me a monthly fee, and I
Oh,
just don't use it enough.
I've got a really old one too. I think it's from 2008.
Yeah,
So
that's probably about mine.
So I thought, and I've downloaded it onto a external hard drive because my laptop didn't have enough. With all these pictures, that takes up quite a bit of memory. So I
Yeah, I
seem to
have
take pictures
lots of
everywhere.
external hard drives. Do you have Amazon Prime?
Yes.
They have unlimited photo storage.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll even organize your photos for you. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, just go to Amazon Photo Storage. It's just one of your free services.
I
And
had no
it will scan
idea.
your computer, grab all your pictures, put them into by date, and literally like the other day I just typed in water, and 40,000 of my photos popped up, and I was able to look through them. Then I put in ocean and it popped up, and then I was putting in Cannon Beach, and
Oh my
it
goodness.
even, I mean, it's a little creepy, but it even like I can look it up by just my daughter's face being in the photo.
Wow.
So
I
it's
had
really
no
nice.
idea. Well, yeah,
Um,
since I'm paying that fee per year, I might as well take advantage.
yeah, yeah, we pay a little extra because of video storage as well, but if you don't need very much video storage, that's free. So yeah, I'll mention
Yeah.
that again to the class.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So don't worry, Gail, you didn't miss anything.
She's leaving. She's had
Yeah,
enough.
she's had enough. Denise is taking us on an adventure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Denise, I'm getting seasick.
Holy cow, look at that gallery.
Yeah,
Woo, that was a cool wall of art. Look at all that art.
I know. I feel like a narcissist because 90% of what I've got on my walls are mine.
Ah,
So I'm trying to start a collection of different people, but it takes money. Money, money, money.
yeah, I don't think I have any of my own paintings. No, that's not true. I do have a couple of my own paintings downstairs. Upstairs is my narcissism, ego
Ah,
fulfilling area,
ah.
or make you crazy depending on how critical you want to be during that day. All right. So we got a little while, and I did get a lot of emails that people are unable to make it today. So we might have a
Oh,
nice small group. So I'll be able to answer a lot of questions,
okay.
and everybody else will be joining us on the recorded, which is fantastic. I'm so thrilled that that's an option for everybody, that they can just watch it at their leisure or join live.
Mhm.
Love it.
So I'm a little confused. Are we painting or something similar to the trees next to the water, or are we painting the colored tree? Like it looked like a tree in blossom.
Yeah, I will tell us everybody here when we start
Oh,
class. So I'm
okay.
repeating.
All right.
But
Well,
yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both. I decided to take a step back.
oh,
I got enough questions of people, and I'm I'm a little bit nervous. Well, I'm always nervous when I teach because, but I'm a little bit nervous just because I've never presented it in the way I'm going to present it today.
hmm.
But I want to take a step back and just kind of walk everybody through the process a little bit more. And I am going to be painting the underpainting in acrylic and then the top painting in oil. I have been really enjoying this, and I think maybe it may be useful for some people. So I'll talk about that more. What do we
Can
got
you
here? We got like 5 more minutes still. So yeah,
can you
how's
use a
everybody
hair
doing?
dryer?
What's that?
Can you use a hair dryer to speed the drying of that acrylic rather than
Sure.
waiting 3 days?
Yeah, absolutely. And I left my fan on in my studio, hoping that that's also um, gonna speed it up. And yeah, I'll be curious again how it ages. And that's why I'm doing today's painting in 2 steps, which is gonna be kind of funny because it's like, well, I'll talk about it here in just a little bit. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody's bright, shiny faces. All right, we got 10 of us so far. And like I was saying to Kate, I did get a lot of emails last night or this morning that people are unable to make it for traveling, which is really great. I can't believe people are finally traveling again. And then a couple people actually have doctor's appointments, which is not as great, except for, well, could be good, depending on what you're doing at the doctor's office. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, Susan. Nancy, Linda, Donna, Barbara, Denise, Gail, and Kate so far. Fantastic. Good group. And Soli's joining us too. Let me go ahead and, well, we'll just do the group for a little bit and then I'll pin myself. All right, let me go grab my coffee real quick and be right back.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Nice to
Hello
see you.
there.
Morning. Everybody did such an awesome job with the assignment.
Can hear everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to take my self view off. It distracts me. I like to look at myself. I always look back and I think, oh my God, why did I show my face? So anyway, I'm
Oh.
nice to see you all.
Oh, stay with us. You look cute.
I gotta go, but I'm here.
Okay.
I love the color of your shirt. You
Yeah.
look beautiful.
Thank you.
Hello. Yes.
Okay. Oh, we still got 2 minutes. Man, I'm so eager. I want to get going. And I think I'm set up. I think I'm ready. We will see. Hopefully, everybody's had a chance to get to the Facebook page. You guys are amazing. There is so much beautiful work being created, and I'm going to take all of the credit for that. So great job, everybody. Just kidding. You guys are really, really pushing yourselves, challenging yourselves. A number of people even did more than one painting. So really, way to go, everybody. And if you had a busy week or weren't able to get to it, do not worry. Again, you guys all have A pluses already, and you're gonna keep your A plus no matter what. So I want this to work for you schedule wise and painting wise. I want it to be only the right amount of stress, as much stress as you want. If you say, oh man, class is almost starting, I need to get painting, and that works for you, do it. But if that just stresses you out and makes you not want to paint, don't do it. Paint as much, as little. Of course, those who paint the most will do the best. Those who, paint every day are going to do better than people that paint every other day or every third day or once a week or only when Mike is in the class or whatever. And that's just the way it is. The way you get good at painting is by painting. But what I'm hoping through teaching in class and everything else is that the way you get better while you're painting is by painting in the right way. And by learning how to critique yourself, look at your art in an honest and friendly, nice way. We want to be hard on ourselves and nice to ourselves, which is always difficult. If we're too hard on ourselves and too critical, it's easy to shut ourselves down. And I'm saying all these things because these are all things I've learned over the years. There's times when I'm just like, holy cow, you didn't paint anything good all year. What are you doing? Get back. And then there's other times where I'm like, okay, I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be, but look, I was experimenting a lot. I was trying new things. I was being brave. And I've learned a lot of what not to do. I've learned a lot of what to do, and I've learned of what works better for me. And that's what I'm hoping, is that I'm giving you guys tools, techniques, and just different ways of thinking about painting that will help you when we're not together. I had a really interesting discussion. I'm just going to go ahead and start class now. Welcome, everybody. So good to see everybody. And if you want, you can just pin it on me, or you can look at the group. It's up to you. You can see a lot of paintings in the background here. I've been a busy guy working on commissions and getting that show finalized from last weekend. And if I cough a little bit, I I was a little bit nervous yesterday because I was still hoarse from talking for 3 days straight and painting for 3 days straight in the gallery. So hopefully my voice doesn't crack too much and I don't cough too much. I've got water hidden around the studio, so when I'm walking around painting, I can grab little sips. But anyways, I wanted to start with something that was really interesting. I'm in an art discussion group, I guess would be a good way to say it, not a critique group, but an art discussion group, because we actually have a dancer in our group. We have a clown from France in our group. We have a bookmaker and metalsmith. It's a tattooist. It's a really interesting group where we just discuss art and ideas. And one of the things that came up in that discussion was, let me see if I can get my notes here. I was mentioning about being a teacher, and one of the ladies asked, am I a teacher, a trainer, or a coach? And that kind of stumped me for a little bit. And I was kind of like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, I've had coaches. I played sports in high school. I've hired a trainer in the gym. And my mom was a teacher growing up. Okay, so what were the different things that they did? And it was interesting because, like, what does a coach do? He helps set goals. He empowers you to, or she empowers you to succeed. Sorry, my image is a little bit blurry. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's focusing behind me. And then I was thinking about a trainer. What does a trainer do? Like, okay, if you hire a trainer at the gym, they're basically just, lift more, 10 more sets. It's like a taskmaster, right? It's somebody that keeps you in line, keeps you focused. And then I was thinking about a teacher. What does a teacher, what does a teacher do? And my title is art teacher, and it's concepts. It's, different tricks. It's different historical information. It's concepts. And so in that, thinking about that yesterday, if you guys will allow me, I would like to be all three. I think that the ideal, you guys can decide on the title because I don't want to be your coach, trainer, teacher. But I think that I have all of that. I think that as a coach, my goal should be to help you to help yourselves. My goal is to help you ask better questions. My goal is to help you paint when I'm not around. To think about, the questions that I'm asking. Again, my whole idea is as an instructor is to help you just ask better questions of yourself and of your paintings. I don't like the idea of creating a whole bunch of Michael Orwick painters, clones. I do know a lot of you, take my class for specific aspects of my paintings that you enjoy and like, and that's fantastic. And I try to share everything, no secrets. So hopefully I'm answering that and giving you that information. And then when it comes to being a teacher and concepts, that's where I'm going to be focusing today a little bit. I'm going to be breaking down the different steps and the way that I think about approaching a painting. So today's class, again, if you will allow me, I'm going to take 3 steps back so that we can take 4 steps forward today. I've gotten enough questions to kind of realize where I've maybe not filled in all of the information. It's tough because it's a kind of a series of classes, everyone kind of building on the previous class series. And I don't want to repeat myself too much for all the students that have been with me all year, but at the same time, I know there's a number of students who this is their first, group of classes with me. So my apologies to some of the students that have been with me for, this would be their 16th week, which is awesome. 50, I don't know. But anyways, we're going to take a couple steps back and I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to go back to Photoshop, talk about the image that I'm using and show you a little bit of the ways that I think about it on Photoshop, take that up to the easel. I'm going to work it in black and white. Today I'm going to be using acrylic. Please note, I'm not asking you to do an acrylic underpainting if you don't want to. This again is still kind of new for me, and you don't need to do that if you would prefer to work it up in oils or whatever. But I think by doing it with the acrylics, I will be able to show you how my brain is working, how I'm thinking about value and design first, which was the first 6 weeks of classes. And then I'm going to think about color and harmony. And then what this class is about, edges, brushwork, and all of that, which also leads me into a discussion I would love to have with you guys while I'm up there painting, is about style. It's an interesting concept, but how do we develop our own style? And is it important that we do? Do we care if we do? So that's what I would like to have for our discussion when I'm up painting. Everybody okay with that? Did that make sense? Any
Yes.
questions about that? So maybe instructor, I don't know, maybe instructor could be the catch-all term that's a coach, trainer, teacher. I don't know. I haven't never thought about that part of it, but
I'm going to call you my guru.
Guru. Wow. Okay. All right. Great. Well, we'll have meditation class starting next series. So that's a lie. Yeah, so I'll put my notes away and I'm going to go ahead and do screen share. Very quickly, I'd just like to jump over to our Facebook page, which again, you guys are just filling up. It is fantastic. I apologize for anybody that posted after, I think, 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. I did not even make it back to the Facebook page. I did spend a couple hours. Screen share. Everybody seeing our Facebook page, all the pictures posted?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, look at this collection of artwork, you guys. Fantastic. That's, I mean, just goes and goes and goes. You guys have been really active, painting a lot, really challenging yourselves. And so very quickly, I just wanted to talk about a couple of them. And then I'm going to show you a couple examples of steps where we're going from tonalism towards luminism. So I'm just going to quickly kind of bust through these. Karen, I don't know if Karen's on here, but beautiful, very, very subtle, very tonalist painting. This may be one of the most tonalist paintings of the group. And her example, her reference, very tonalist photo. So that's fun to see. And I will get back to everybody that posted and leave little written critiques maybe this afternoon if I get time and I'm not too worn out. Karen, beautiful, just nice and simple, clean field, trees, clouds. This is a great example of, you know, we don't need to go overboard. You don't need so much information, so much details when we're just working on different skill sets. Sometimes simple is better. You can really focus in and just try some things. We don't need to make really advanced paintings every time. Not saying this isn't, but sometimes simple is better. Really nice job, nice soft edges, beautiful. And another really nice tone, very much a tonalist, very earth tones, nice, beautiful, simple shapes, interesting design. It's cool. It's almost like a modern painting, and it's all about design, all about values. And then it's still incorporating the tonalist and very earth tone. So I love that kind of a hybrid of art. Jan's painting here, very interesting. This one, if I was to say something, I would look to these edges up on tops of the mountains here and see if we couldn't soften those, and that'll push those back into perspective versus having just the really soft edges in the foreground. And this could work if it's done purposely, and maybe Jan did do this purposely. Maybe what Jan is hoping is that this becomes the focus area. So if we remember back to last class, our eye is attracted to edges. Our eye is attracted to contrast, and often contrast between lights and darks, or warms and cools, or brights and darks, creates the feeling of edge and line. And so this is a good example. My eye is definitely drawn to this area where the two mountains meet and the sky back here. And these trees in the front actually take a second before I even kind of, my brain even registers that they're trees. Do you guys have that same kind of a response? It's really interesting how edges work in that way, that again, our eyes just go, oh, edge, that must be interesting. That must be important. Soft edge, less important. Our eye kind of just skirts across it. And so anyways, it can be totally purposeful. A lot of artists will have really soft areas where they just don't really care for you to spend too much time looking or investigating. And then they put the crisp, sharper edges and higher contrast in the areas where they want you to spend time. So if it's purposeful, fantastic. If it's less than purposeful, it's something we can work towards. Oh, Susan, I think Susan's still working on this one, but what a nice feeling, right? Definitely kind of nocturne, nighttime feeling. Looks like a moon, probably a very bright moon. Beautiful blues and greens, which are also very calming. So as you're painting these paintings, begin to contemplate, what do the colors I'm choosing? What kind of emotional response am I getting from that? And, you can look it up and read about that, or you can just go, it's personal, because colors affect all of us differently. We all have different backgrounds and histories. And how is that affecting us? Interesting, we got these angles, we've got the horizontal, and we've got these nice verticals. So lots of different shapes, lots of different things. I would be curious, maybe this area, it looks like just a field forever, a little hint of some hills back here, but maybe hinting at some trees. I'm not sure if we're kind of on a hilltop looking down onto a valley is how it makes me feel. Maybe a little bit of information down there. As we move forward with this class, I'm going to urge some of you, maybe all of you, to start to use some paint. I did notice in this last exercise, and that may be because, you see me wiping away and scumbling in my paint, but if you're catching the ridges of your canvas or your linen or your whatever else, and it's kind of becoming distracting because you got these nice angles on these clouds, horizontal shapes, but then you have these vertical striations. And I believe this almost looks like linen, probably canvas, but it's a little bit competing against, I think, the shapes and the direction that you want.
That's the unfinished part.
Okay, great. Yeah, and you'll see that in my paintings, of course, as well. And there are times I leave very thin areas, but I am paying attention. Is the thinness and the what's showing through fighting what I want? So yeah, thanks, Susan. So two things when adding more paint. One is some of you guys are very, very, very much using your paint like watercolors, meaning you're mixing in so much paint thinner that it's just washes and nothing else. I love washes, I love glazing, I love thin paint, but you want to also have thick paint where it's needed, or thicker paint. You want to have coverage. So like in Susan's case here, Susan's just going to come back and do another layer of painting, which is often how I treat my paintings. I often will do my first paint quite thin, get in my ideas, get in my structure, get in my design, get in my shapes, maybe get in my values, let that dry for a couple of days, and then I'll come back in and paint on top of that. And that allows me to really check myself in the different stages as I'm working on it. So I'm going to say that that's exactly what Susan's doing here. Good job, Susan. Beautiful, Kathleen. Look at how soft and airy I mean, we've all seen this if we live on the Pacific Northwest coastal area. Really, really captures a feeling and a mood. You really kept to the tonalist sensibilities. You don't have, you know, it could be the photo, but you really don't have any dark darks, and you don't have any light lights. There's nothing white. You know, you can even see this little stripe of white along the edge. Nothing as bright as that, and nothing as dark as black. Everything's been kind of condensed. Again, if we think musicality, this is being played in the middle keys, maybe even on the higher end of the piano keyboard. And so that's a great thing to think about, because it's really nice to experiment with constraining our colors and constraining our values. So Kate, you can kind of jump in and tell me if I'm seeing that correctly and if that was kind of your goal. Oh, can't hear you.
Okay, it was. I was a little disappointed though. I wanted the trees to show up a little bit more, but I couldn't figure out how to do it without having some hard edge. So maybe you could help with that?
Well, you can go to color contrast as well. So you've got the kind of yellow behind them, and they do appear kind of purplish a little bit. You can use some of that. I mean, they can get a touch darker, or maybe they're a little bit darker up above where the light's not wrapping around as strongly. If you've seen any of my paintings, you know that I will bend it towards reds and oranges where the light is behind it, which would bring a little bit of attention to that area. But I don't think it bothers me too much. I might darken some of the areas where there's more foliage, where the light is not permeating as much, because the light, when you get to these thin trunks and thin branches and wispy leaves, it's absolutely able to wrap around. When we have a lot of atmosphere, light doesn't travel in as straight a line. So this got to stick with me for a second. This is going to sound kind of weird. But when we have a lot of soft atmosphere, I always make everything weird. And here's how I think of it. I think of the light as giving a hug. The light kind of envelops the surface because it's bouncing around within that atmosphere, right? On a crisp, clear day, the light travels very straight and crisp and sharp, but on a soft, hazy day, the light envelops because, again, it's bouncing around within all of the particulates of the moisture in the air. And so you don't want to have real hard edges on small objects like the trunks and the branches and the little wispy trees. But the arms, the light's reach might not be so much that it's not getting into the denser, darker backside, the side facing us away from the light. And so you can make that a little bit stronger so it doesn't all feel like the light is treating it the same. Please let me know if that made sense.
Well, it does. My photograph was not at all atmospheric. It was just daytime. And I had to apply the principles you taught us to try and make it look like this.
I think it's quite beautiful, quite successful. If I'm to critique, it might be, again, like adding a little dark there. This little triangle shape coming down here, I don't know what it is. It kind of looks like it's part of this because it lines right up with here. It kind of looks like a far distant hill. It's unclear to me. And that would be, in my instance, if I were painting it, when in doubt, take it out. If it's not helping, it's hurting. I would also probably soften up these edges a little more. If these edges this close to us are this soft, this is probably really soft back here. And that would really push it back. Maybe have some lost edges. You could leave maybe the top of this a little crisper and add in some haze and fog back here, which is super fun to do. Getting back, I love pushing things back into perspective using atmospheric haze. Almost feels sometimes a little bit like cheating because it does such an interesting and quick job of really pushing things back and bringing other objects forward. Yeah, very nicely done. Chandra, are you on? Or Chanda, are you on here at all? Sorry, I'm not seeing everybody in the group.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. Nicely done. This is almost a really good example of what we will be going over today. So that's kind of interesting. This is like an in-between of the tonalist and kind of the luminist painting. Nice. So tell me really quickly while I've got you unmuted, what had you choose this image for this assignment? What was the idea here?
No, so it wasn't for this. So I had injured my wrist and I wasn't able to, really work on any of the assignments for this class yet. This is something I started before the class started.
Oh, okay.
So it was yesterday that my wrist was feeling better and I just went ahead and finished it. But then I kind of tried and blurred out some of the edges, trying to use some of the concepts you taught us. But it wasn't meant to be a tonalist painting.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and save this image, take it over to student work here. I may do a little bit of work on this in Photoshop really quickly because you got a lot of really neat things going on and a couple little tweaks that I think we can do to possibly make it a little bit better. It really is in line with this next assignment. So
Oh, I see.
just waited a heartbeat. You could have just been done with this week's assignment and jumped ahead. But now I know, and you can't cheat. You got to do another one. So sorry.
Yes, that's true.
Nice job. It's an interesting image. I like these background. I like this ridge line. What I would do very quickly is see how dark these 3 background or maybe even 4 background shapes are. They're actually darker than this. So that makes them appear to be floating kind of in space, not literally sitting in water. They want to kind of come forward. Dark objects oftentimes want to kind of come forward, especially when you're dealing with the idea of atmosphere and depth. So you may want to lighten those up, and I would mean like lighten and possibly gray them a little bit. And I'll show you again on Photoshop if I get a second. And I would probably do the same with this line of buildings here. And in fact, I hope you're able to join us for the whole class. One of the painting that I'm going to use to color, I will be doing just this thing, except for mine will be trees, not buildings. But the same concept is going to apply. In fact, I have my sun right behind them, shining down, just like I love to do. It's going to be one of the most Mike Orwick paintings you've ever seen. It's got the tree, the creek, the sun setting behind everything. You guys scared me last week by challenging me so much, so I'm going to my comfort zone this week as I try to teach some new concepts. One other thing really quickly while I have you is, do you see these little ripples in the water? They're very nice. And to me, they say ripples in water, but they say it almost too perfectly because it's just, I don't believe that you were really studying your reference anymore. I believe that you said, okay, this little arch shape equals ripples in water. And so then you go, okay, well, I need a lot of ripples in water. So you stopped looking at the reference so much and just said ripple, 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 ripple. So it became more of a language. I talked to a lot of students about this. This is a really common for painters, and it's totally fine. You can do it 100%. Like if you just say, you know what, Mike, that is my style. Leave me alone. Get off my back. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Yeah, you are a language-based or a, what's a good way of saying it? Symbol-based painter. So a lot of us, when we are starting out painting or painting new things that we're not as comfortable with, we'll paint, this line represents a grass. And I think I've said this before. Okay, there's 1,000 grasses in my painting. So this line 1,000 times. And we're not looking at the reference anymore. We're just painting 1,000 grasses. The most common I see, of course, is leaves. This little dab equals a leaf. So I need 2,000 dabs of, dot, 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 dot. It's almost like using a stamping tool.
Mhm.
And so we're not questioning, we're not looking at shape, we're not looking at value, we're not looking at color. We are going to the language side of our brain. And I'm
Okay.
totally not picking on you because I do the same.
Oh no, that actually that was the hardest part of this painting, is getting those waves right, and something I've been struggling with a lot actually, just getting the water and the waves, and just getting them
it
the way
is
they appear.
hard. And it's taking our brain and disassociating it from what we're painting. So that's why I say we do not paint things, right? If you learn to hold your brush like a conductor, and you remember this one mantra, we do not paint things. We paint values, shapes, and colors.
Mhm.
It's up to the viewer to see the things. Okay.
Right.
It's a teamwork between us and the person looking at the painting. So what happens is sometimes we just don't trust the viewer. We don't trust our teammate. And so we say, you know what? I need to tell them that it's 1,000 little wavelets or ripples and 1,000 leaves and 1,000 grasses, and that, lost edges. I just don't trust that they'll know that there's an elbow or a knee on this person if I don't go in and outline it and make it very, very clear. So
Right.
the viewer likes to do the work. Our teammate wants to be involved. They want some mystery. They want to figure it out. So yeah, it's very, very difficult. And it's something that we're always going to be working on. I think I may have said it in this class, and I've said it in some of the others, that all we do is paint the right colors, the right shapes, and the right values in the right places. And that's it. That's all painting is. But we'll be working on that until we're on our deathbed. We never master that.
That is true.
It is the journey, and that is the joy and the anguish, and why artists go mad. And it's that simple and that elusive. So anyways, beautiful done. Nice colors. Your sky is wonderful. If I do have some time, maybe I'll throw this into Photoshop and just show you a couple quick things I was talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, here's your reference. Very nice. Okay, see, I'm glad you had this in there. But yeah, see how different this is than that is?
Yeah.
This is the language. This is like we would see on a wall in Egypt, right? This equals water ripples on the Nile versus what are we seeing here? It's very abstract, obscenely abstract. We have to take our brain out of it. We can't say, I am painting water ripples. You have to say, I'm painting a dark passage with some lighter, warmer passages. You know what I mean? It's so abstract.
Yeah.
Everything we paint is abstract.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nancy, are you on the call? Not sure. This is really lovely. What an interesting gray painting. Sometimes colorful gray paintings can be some of my favorite, right? None of these colors are pure. None of these colors are punch you in the face, princess pink and princess purple, but they are obviously pinks and purples and very subtle. Difficult to do, especially because what draws us into these cherry blossoms or whatever we're looking at, cherry blossoms, what you wrote there, is their brightness and their contrast and their beauty. But I like this so much more than I would if it was just a punchy screaming, I'm a cherry blossom tree, I'm beautiful. I love this. I love the subtlety. I love the tonalism. Hopefully it's not just the photo quality. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this painting real quick. And I don't have time to go through everybody's photos, so I'm gonna have to stop soon. But if I don't get to you, it's not personal by any means. Go ahead.
Well, this was a photo taken actually by my son-in-law, and it was it was taken on the river front, and the bridge is in the background. But it was all very clear and, you know, very bright. And I wanted to try it as a tonalist painting. And I didn't really want to get into the bridge so much.
You're like, a bright, clear sky. That doesn't look like Oregon. Let me make everything gray.
It was a bright blue sky, actually.
No, I know. Well, then that's doubly difficult. I think you did a great job. My advice, I think the tree's really nice. Your branches get thinner as they go out from their source. So, you know, the branches are thicker towards the trunk is thicker towards the ground. It doesn't have to be huge, drastic, but you know, the tree's got to be able to hold itself up. The branches have to be able to hold themselves up. So nicely done on that. This edge here on the bridge is actually a little bit distracting because it is one of the crispest edges in the painting. So my eye does keep coming to there. So if you can soften that or just make that not quite as strong a contrast,
yeah,
I think that will help a little bit. I would like to see some of this sky through some of the trestles. I think would be a little bit nice. This, I know what bridge you're talking about. I've painted in this very park. But it doesn't look like a bridge. In a lot of ways, it looks very solid. It doesn't look like, you know, steel girder.
Right.
So a couple little sky holes, just this value of the sky or a little bit darker in a couple areas, just let us know that, you know, there's light coming through there.
Okay.
I hope you're proud of yourself. That was an interesting challenge that you set, and it's very calming, very nice.
I actually love doing it. I like this tonal. I like tonal work. I think it's easier in some ways because you're not using every color in your palette.
Right. So I agree, but that's our secret. Don't tell anybody. But that's why I started with that. And that's why we're going to move to the next step to Luminism, which is just a next practical step. And it's literally, I think I'm more of a luminist than a tonalist in truth. But a lot of people don't really know what Luminism is. It sounds weird. Sounds like a religion more than a painting style. It's a very natural progression for me that I actually start my paintings tonalist, and then I add some of the luminist elements. And I think they go back and forth. I think the truth is that they are, that people use them indiscriminately. There's a horrible painting that we're going to try to make better today. I'm going to redo this one and try to do a little better job. This was a crazy experiment, but anyways, used it as the email. Another one. Okay, really quick. Maureen, are you here? Maureen. Nice image, interesting design. I'm just going to go over this one really quickly. This would be a very much an example of what I was talking about at the beginning of class about using more paint where it's needed. Right now, the only, and I think I went over this in the comments. Yeah, it's got an interesting design. It leads our eye back. It's got nice colors, different edges. You know, it's getting 90% of what I wanted from this assignment. But this may be one that we can look at and say, okay, see how transparent the grasses are here? Very kind of washy. And also this foreground tree is very transparent looking. The paint is thin. And then you have this mid-ground area where quite a bit of paint, and you've got texture, density of paint, and then you get back to nice and soft edges back here. So in these far back trees, the less paint, the soft edges, the transparency of the paint completely makes sense. Then you get to the mid-ground where it still makes sense, but not in comparison to the grasses and the trees. This tree wants to be much denser, much stronger. And so hopefully Maureen gets a chance to watch this or reads the comments. I haven't checked, but that is an example of what I was talking about. And maybe Maureen is still working on this and building up the paint. I don't know, but that's an example of that. Susan, I wanted to talk about yours for sure. Is Susan here with us? I haven't heard her today.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Susan,
I want to, yeah.
Yeah, Susan has been with me in all my classes this year, and it's been really fun. I think Susan and I share a lot of the same kind of paintings and photos that we're attracted to. We like the sunsets and the cool clouds versus the warm clouds, and big vista kind of scenes. I do think, Susan, this is one of your best paintings yet. It's really interesting. I could actually see it hanging in a gallery or in a show. No problem. The frame helps, but really nicely done there. You were asking for a little bit of feedback. I love how the light travels through here. I think your sense of depth in this whole top painting is pretty much done. I think your light on this hill is quite nice. It's subtle. It's catching softer light, but not direct warm light. I really like how the light is coming, hitting, and even traveling through some of this. What I would like to talk about, and what I don't quite understand, is this looks like a tree on the right side, correct, Susan?
Yes, it's the same tree, but it's too wet because too many oil. I take picture and it's a flexion.
Oh,
Oil
sure.
flexion. Yeah.
But what is the top? Is this a mountain back here?
Mountain, yes, same like the left-hand side mountain.
Okay, and then it goes down and down.
And far away is some trees. Yeah.
Okay, so Susan, see this with me for really quickly. This tree goes up, and I guess it stops right here. This is the top of the tree where my mouse is.
Yes, top of the tree.
Okay, so this is something called a tangent.
Oh, tangent.
Tangent means where something looks like it's holding up something else. And look, this mountain shape, this tree shape, are exactly the same.
Oh, I see. Oh.
It happens in photos all the time. We get accidental tangents.
Oh.
Look where the tree goes up to this side, and the mountain on the side is exactly the same. So that's where I couldn't understand where the tree was and where the mountain was, because they become one thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So what I would do is turn it all into this tree and just take this line and let it run off into the tree and disappear.
Okay.
I think if you let this all be a little bit of a tree that's really close to us, that will make more sense.
Yeah, that's will be very cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow I'm submitting to my school for spring show because I'm the new student, spring semester students just start.
Oh, good.
I like your class. I learned a lot. Really, it's very useful for my study. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, good luck.
I will continue to finish my 36 credits in academic of art university. Maybe end of next year I can graduate.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
I try.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You're great. The other thing, so you've got this tangent, which does that make sense that I can't quite understand where the tree and the mountain are, and they look like they're kind of bound together. The other thing is you've got a value and color tangent as well. So you have this dark in the tree, you have this dark tree, and if you notice, it literally is the same as these trees way back here.
Yeah.
So it looks like almost like a T shape. So you need to differentiate this tree from these trees back here. And it would be as simple for me as going in and making these a little bluer, a little cooler, a little lighter.
Yes, I made it yesterday.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. But still, as you say, the right-hand side, the trees, and yes. The front is the water. The left, the shining place is a golf course.
A water.
Right. Yeah. Middle is the water. Is a river. It's a very famous river in Banff. But right hand side, the shining place is far away. You can see the golf course.
Back here.
No. The right hand side. Here? Yeah. This one.
So that's not water.
Not water. It's different.
A little bit.
Uh,
It feels more like it's just dark water to me.
uh,
Don't worry, you don't need to tell them everything. Let them.
okay.
That's where the deal comes in, right?
Yeah.
This is a team. You and me, we are a team. You paint it, I look at it, and I fill it in with my brain, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that does not look. There's if you care that that's a golf course, I can't tell, but
Yeah.
I
No,
don't care that it's. I don't care if I know it's a golf course.
even I took a picture as 3 days morning. I cannot see it's a golf course, but finally I went there. I see, oh, that is golf course.
Then it doesn't matter, and I wouldn't make it a golf course because it's only going to hurt this painting. If you have this beautiful, majestic vista, and all of a sudden you throw, you know, a golf course or a 7-Eleven or something in there, it's just really going to take away from the majesty and the beauty of this. So I would just leave it as it is, because to me, again, it just feels like water. Nicely done. I love this tree. I just think it looks so almost Art Nouveau, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Great job, Susan. I apologize to everybody else. I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to quickly jump over to, I'm going to jump back to stop share. And I tried loading these onto our Facebook page in the media section. These are just, I'm going to quickly run through some examples of Luminism. All right, hopefully everybody's seeing my little folder over here of little squares of luminous paintings, yeah? Oops. Everybody's seeing this big luminous painting now by Bierstadt with a deer on it?
Yes.
Great. All right, so.
You said this is on Facebook for us to download?
I did load them. I hope so. If you go to the media area, I hopefully just loaded them. It took me a couple tries. For some reason, it just kept saying failed. So they do not have the titles of the artists on there because I just ran out of time this morning. So I'm going to quickly, as I'm going through these, tell you some of the names of these artists. This is Albert Bierstadt, who just like George Ennis, was kind of the name of tonalism. Albert Bierstadt is probably the name for American luminist painters. Came from the Hudson River School, and it's a strange history because his paintings were really used to get people to move west, the Great Expansion, and unfortunately the annihilation of the Native Americans. Because he's basically like, look, it's God's country. We've got to get there, and forward ho, let's all go. And but he really did. It was really interesting. He would travel by train and paint, and his paintings, when they would be unveiled, were really big events. Like literally, you know, the big pulling off of the sheet, and they were really big paintings, and people would ooh and ah. You know, it's before television, before movies. And they would be really big events, and you can just see he just capitalized on that. I mean, he was all about the light, and he was not afraid to push the extremes and make, you know, the West Coast of America just look like the most magical, crazy, beautiful place. But anyway, so he's kind of one of the biggest names. Can I just go to the next one? Oh, I thought I would have a little arrow just to go through them. Another Bierstadt here. Oh, there's my arrow. This is a much more simple one. Just probably a little study for him, but really interesting skies. And the truth is, this is kind of a funny thing, is that Luminism actually predates tonalism in the US. And so they're kind of, that's why I say they're so closely interrelated. And so many of the references I was, you know, looking at and choosing through, you could have just said, I'm pretty sure that's tonalist, or, you know, you could look at a lot of tonalist work and say, I'm pretty sure those are luminist. So they do kind of go back and forth. But what we are going to be doing with today's assignment is opening up our colors a little bit, or opening up our value range a little bit between our lights and darks, and opening up our edge quality a little bit. So I want to look at some tighter edges, maybe coming forward, and then you can keep the soft edges going back. Hey, look, it's Mount Hood. Albert Bierstadt, I think this painting is in Oregon, painted Mount Hood. I always thought that was really pretty cool. Not exactly sure what view he's looking at there, but I mean, it looks like even they got big waterfalls. He was not afraid to make things up a little bit to make them that much more amazing and exciting. So kind of cool to see his interpretation. This is a living artist named Brent Cotton, who a lot of people consider a tonalist. This is a gentleman that I've painted with a couple times. Really interesting style that he uses. If you look up his work, Brent Cotton, he's from Montana. He paints a lot of cotton trees, which is funny. But now he
Michael, can you enlarge that, please?
Oh yeah, sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
He paints currently using a lot of palette knives, so his new paintings have a lot more texture. He lives on the river in Montana, and I think he was a fishing guide for a long time. So there's a lot of reference to fishing and rivers in his paintings. But I think of this one almost as more of a luminous painting, and I wanted to throw it in because it's not even a luminous sky, which most of these paintings will have. He actually has this kind of darker painting with this streak of light shooting across, just beautiful. And then look at the little bits of cool colors that he has to contrast. So, you know, the warm light coming through here, and then this cool blue reflections are reflecting the cool sky up above. Really neat. He's quite the painter. So I guess I got to go down to get the arrow. No, I guess once I touch that, I lose the arrow. Brent Cotton, there's another one of his wife. So there are a couple figurative paintings I've thrown in here. I'll blow this one up. And like here you can see, here he's using some palette knife, getting some texture in there. But this one, if I were to ask you, you would probably tell me it was a luminous painting, and I would agree. So you see how artists will very often kind of bounce back and forth between them. And I'm only showing you these different styles, not that I care about titles in paintings or isms or, you know, any of that, but I just want to show you a little bit about history and a little bit about how I approached my evolution in painting and how I approach my paintings still. So a lot of my paintings start off as tonal paintings, and then I will come in and tighten up some edges, soften some other edges for depth, and also add in the feeling of light and color and atmosphere as I build them up. So just want to show you that. Brent Cotton. And one last Brent Cotton painting. I think this is actually his front yard. But a lot more colorful, soft edges where he wants kind of the feeling of glow. Really kind of nice, just edge quality. You can probably see that he has influenced my work over the years. I'm going to be bouncing around between living and dead artists a little bit here. This is Emil Klaus. And why I grabbed him is he is considered an illuminist painter, but he would fit in perfectly with Impressionist painters, wouldn't he? Which is some of the next painting we will be doing is Impressionism. So I want to show you that, you know, one is not exclusive of the other. And most artists have their toes in multiple styles. And that's fine. I don't want you to say, you know what, I'm a tonalist, so I can never do these, or I can't do that, or I can only do this. I love bouncing around between genres and styles and everything else. And I think you'll learn a lot. And, you know, maybe one day we'll be like, oh, that's you know, we'll name some style after you because you'll mix your own styles and create your own thing. And, you know, that'll be fun.
What's his name again, Michael?
Emil, E-M-I-L-E, Klaus, C-L-A-U-S. He died in 1924. This is called Young Peasant Women. I think it's at the Leie, L-E-I-E, if you care about all that. But Emil Klaus. One more Emil Klaus painting, very different, not nearly as impressionistic. You can see it's a little tighter edges. He's got kind of and it may be a woman, but I'm pretty sure Emil is a guy. He's beginning some of his impressionistic. To me, this feels like an older painting, less sophisticated than the other one. This feels a little more insecure, but it has a lot of beauty to it. And I can see the hints of Impressionism in the top third and bottom quadrant of the painting. And then the middle part where he was a little more insecure, a little tighter edges and things like that. But anyways, nice colors, interesting design. It doesn't completely hold together. It feels like a couple different paintings in different areas. But anyways, I thought I would share that as well. Now we're coming to another artist who is alive. I don't think anybody would really consider Jack Vettriano is the name of this artist, Vettriano. You guys have probably seen his work if you've been in any frame shop in the last 20 years. There'll be a Jack Vettriano painting. I, in fact, did a painting of penguins based on one of his paintings that I named the Vettriano Penguins. For a long time, that was my #1 selling print and greeting card. So kind of interesting. But he, you know, I think of him, he's kind of definitely got his own style where they're kind of tight and crisp edges for the most part. I mean, he almost outlines things, but he does have, you know, anyways, I like them. Even if they are kind of simple, they're beautiful, they're interesting, they tell kind of a story. And it does have that tonalist quality where it all kind of lies within one color group for the most part. A little bit of blue up here, a little bit of purple. But for the most part, you'd say this is a yellow and orange painting, very warm. And it also doesn't follow what we did last week because it's almost all hard edged, except for in the clouds, it's got the soft edges. But if anybody's interested in this, you know, I'm not going to tell you exactly what and how to paint. You know, I just want to show you some different ideas that are kind of within the same family. Where is my little arrow? I hate to go back and forth like this. This is the painting that I based my penguins painting on. I think this one's called the Singing Butler. So I guess that means that this guy's singing to these two. As you know, I like to think that's her maid because the little bit of red ties them in, and his butler, and they're a rich couple that met on the beach and are painting, and their poor staff is really trying to, you know, look at that wind in his kerchief, and the umbrellas are getting away from him. She's holding her hat. This one really tells a fun story. I like this painting a lot. And again, it's quite harmonious, but look at this splash of red. Really to say, look here, this is where it's at. And then we investigate on beyond that. So whether or not you consider it a tonalist or a luminist, you know, it's just got threads of those. So I've never heard anybody call him either of those things. This is one of the most famous living luminist painters. This is a gentleman named Joseph McGurl. It's McGurl. Really glowy, very tight, almost photographic paintings. I mean, look at the ripples in this water. He literally didn't pull any punches. He put it all in there. I just imagine that this guy is very attention oriented, and yeah, I would go crazy painting something this detailed, I think. So you kind of got to, you know, judge by your own character, your own personality will kind of dictate your style. For me, I like to have some tight areas and some loose areas. But anyways, there's a lot to learn by looking at Joseph's paintings and how he applies the paint and his use of colors and temperature. Really beautiful work that he does. I've watched him do demonstrations. Here's another one of his. And also a pretty good example of look how, I mean, we have no doubt what we're looking at, right? The sun is above us and it's blasting down and just obliterating the edge quality of things. The sail, look at it, it's getting blasted out by the light. The front of this boat completely blasted by the light. Our eyes can't even focus on it. The bottoms of the bridge is just a soft transition because our eyes can't look into that glare. It almost makes you want to hold up your eye or squint at it because it's so bright, right? But we don't paint with light. We have to paint the illusion of light. So to do that, he's got the contrast of the darks, the contrast of the cools to the warms, And it's a good example too, where we know that there's water ripples and different things, but as we zoom in, right, it's still just very abstract shapes. I love the shadows on that boat. Look at that, this guy. Yeah, he really goes for it.
Who is that artist?
McGurl is his last name. It's Joseph,
Girl.
Mcgurl. I think that's the only, oh, I have one more by him, so I may as well jump over to it. This is a more subtle for him. I'll blow it up. I just love the clouds in this top section a lot, and this little reflection down here definitely gives me things I can learn from. Look, the transition in the sky. Look at the darkest areas in the sky are not at the top, they're actually at the bottom, because that cloud is kind of heavy, the light's breaking through. Just beautiful, interesting things that he has going on there. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this presentation up with a modern, this style is called Neo-Luminism. And there's quite a few painters out there who are doing very abstract luminist paintings. I couldn't find the artist that I couldn't remember the artist that I really like his work. So I just grabbed this painting, which is, I don't care too much about, but it's a lot of fun. And I think as I experiment more with abstraction, I could see myself definitely doing some neo-luminism, because I just love the idea of light and color and atmosphere so much that I could see some of my abstract work going in this direction. I definitely find myself drawn towards it when I see it popping up online and stuff. But anyways, I just wanted to show you, from the very beginning to kind of where it's at now with the super photorealistic painters, the more Brett Cotton tonal. And then this gentleman who his name is Steven, Steven Daluz, Daluz. But otherwise, you can just look up Neo-Luminist and see some modern luminist painters. Any questions, you guys? Do you see how that kind of is just kind of the natural evolution? It's funny that tonalism came after Luminism, because I feel like you start with a tonalist painting and it's a quick evolution to a luminist painting. Any questions or comments on that right now?
Love seeing it.
I just clicked away. Everybody okay? Okay, so now I'm going to take a little break and drink a big glass of water before I really start sounding like a frog. And yeah, let's have a discussion so that I can not talk quite as much the whole time I'm painting. I'll keep painting and talking. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over to the easel right behind me. I'm going to turn on the lights. I've got it set up for the most part, and I'm going to squeeze out some black and white acrylic paint. You will not see the paint as much, but just know that it's just black and white, and I'm just going to be making grays from that. And I'm going to do, oh, shoot, I want to show you one more thing before you go. Quick. One more screen share. Sorry. Where's my Photoshop? All right, everybody see my Photoshop real quickly?
Oh.
So here is our photo reference, and you can paint whatever you want. If you want to paint this, you can. It's a complicated one. Admittedly, there's a lot of crazy going on in here. I've got to decide if I want to kind of edit it out a little bit, but just a real quick overview of what I do. And you guys can do this in your smartphones as well by simply turning it to noir. And you don't have to shoot your photo in the black and white. You can actually change your photos to black and white in the editing of your photos on your phone. So if you don't have Photoshop, but you have a smartphone, you can do a lot of this. Another option is, of course, just making a black and white copy somehow. But this is my base photo. I believe I took it with my sunglasses in front of my camera. A lot of times I will actually breathe onto my sunglasses or onto my glasses to create kind of a softened edge a little bit. Or I maybe did some of the softening of edges a little bit in editing. I use an app called Snapseed, which I believe is $1 or $3. I really like Snapseed. I've been using it for 3 years now. And that's on my phone and on my iPad. I can't get it on my computer, unfortunately. They just don't have an app for the computer. So from there, for how I'm going to start this painting is I just simply copied it, pasted it into a new file, or I could have just done it in layers on there if you're at all handy with Photoshop. I just simply turned it to a black and white. It is very dark. So I'm like, man, I can hardly see what's going on in here. So I simply took that and lightened it. Basically, I just go to my image, adjust brightness, contrast, and I know that I'm going to use the color photo and my black and white photo as my reference. So I just can do that. You know, it can go really dark. If I really want to simplify it and say, Mike, you don't want that much detail, this is a good way for me to really just kind of obliterate all the unnecessary information. Or I can open it up and see into the shadows a little more, like these grasses get easier to see in comparison. And then I can change my contrast if I really want to open this up and really see into there. And what I'll have to remember is that these actually aren't being hit by direct light. If we look at our color reference back here, so I'll have to bring those back into shadow, but this is a good way for me to see my shapes and begin to establish my values. I'm gonna just go back to where I had it, just say cancel. And that gives me enough information again, compared to this really dark one. So I have this version printed up and I have this version printed up. I've put them into a little plastic protector sleeve and I have them on each, one facing on each side of it. So when I start my painting, I'm going to start it with this black and white. Even if I were doing oils and just kind of starting it as a tonal, getting my design in, a lot of times I will look to my black and white reference again, just so I'm not short circuiting my brain and getting caught up in all the minutia. I tell you this not because I want you to do it this way. I tell you this because this is how my brain works best. I have just found over the years of painting thousands of paintings that there's if I just paint it in stages and break up the elements, my brain digests it better. I'm a simple man. I need to focus on one thing at a time. And even when I go out plein air painting, I really brain, think black and white, think values, brain, think big shapes. Stop getting distracted by all the beautiful colors right now. As you guys progress as painters, you may have the capacity within you, because so many painters do. So many great painters don't do all the different steps that I do. You may be able to look out there and simplify everything instantly and see everything as big shapes and small shapes and hard edge and soft edge. But for me, I just find that I enjoy the process of doing it in steps and breaking it into its pieces. Literally how I present my classes: design and composition and values, and then colors, and then edges and brushwork. That's how I break my paintings down mentally. Okay, I'm only telling you that because that's how I do it. And for some of you, that's going to work really great. For others of you, you're like, man, that guy is an idiot. This is so easy. I can just do everything at once. Awesome. Good for you. And that's something I want you to discover about yourself. But if you find, man, I keep jumping ahead, I keep worrying too much about my brush strokes and edges before I've even figured out my design and composition, right? It's the hierarchy. It's the food pyramid with design, composition. That is our base of our pyramid of painting, the most important thing. And now this class is focusing on edges and brush strokes, which is actually the top. That is the dessert on the food pyramid. It is the final things, and it's the fun. And it is where when people talk about style and our individuality, a lot of the time, that is what they're talking about. So that's where you'll develop some of that. So anyways, that makes sense, you guys. I just wanted to show you every step as I progress. So I have these two printed out up at my easel, and let's take a 10-minute break. And we're going to be rushing through this. And it may be that I just get to the black and white, and next week is the color. We'll see, just depending on time. But hopefully this has all made sense. It's all a natural evolution of information as we go forward towards our beautiful luminous paintings this week. All right, 10-minute break. I will see you guys at 10. Let's do 45. So 7-minute break. All right, minute break. 10:45.
Finally got to you with neo-luminism.
But
I loved it. I loved it.
Hey, Michael, you know those two paintings that you had on the ground by the plein air, by the dueling easels?
yeah,
Are you, where are they? Are you gonna show them somewhere or online?
I'll show them to you now.
Ah,
Yeah, I brought them home just because of the shine. I need to varnish them. Not sure where the other one is. The other one I don't quite love. Okay, said that. I'm not sure if these are the ones you're talking about or not. Is that what you were talking about, those two?
I think so. And you said that those were the ones that you did that extra demo for?
Exactly right. So this is kind of, I mean, this is very much an example of what I will be doing with you guys starting here in 5 minutes. I'm gonna walk you through all of these steps. So hopefully that's something that's interesting to people, because that's what you're gonna get. What was your questions about it?
Oh, just, I was looking online to see if I saw them anywhere, but they're not yet.
No, I need to, in real life, in the camera, they look okay right now, but in real life, the shine is very unequal throughout it, meaning I just use different types of paint and different. So I will generally either do the oiling out where I put like a 50% Galkid or Galkid gel or Galkid and 50% paint thinner, and just do it after it's completely dry, do a little wash of that, and that will help equalize the shine. I can also just put Galkid really, really thinly over it, or I just use my varnish. And that's the great thing about varnishing a painting, is it equalizes the shine. But yeah, for those of you who, well, we'll kind of stay on our break, but for those of you that were,
Sorry.
oh, you're okay. I'm just setting up. I'm just squeezing out a very fart sounding bottle of acrylic paint here. Again, just seeing there, it splattered up onto the. The nice thing is, water paints on an oil painting. I can just take a little bit of water, which I need to grab some. Need a new paint or a new water container. That one's got too much flaky paint in it. I don't want flakes of dry paint in this. So anyways, I just splattered a little bit of the white acrylic paint onto the oil painting, but the cool thing is water on top of oils. I can just hopefully wipe that off a little bit. Man, it's wanting to stick. There we go. All right. So what I have is I've got some really cheap, again, I'm stealing my daughter's paint supplies because that's what I've been doing lately as I play. Bottle, a cup of water there. This one's very, very runny, very cheap. You know, this would be for doing posters or something for little kids. And then I have a tube of acrylic white, which is old, probably from back when I was in college. And it's super thick, so I'm going to mix those two whites together to hopefully get kind of a medium consistency white. And then I just grabbed some cheap black, which I will put on the other side of my palette. And then in between them, I'll be able to mix my grays. I've also got a little mister bottle to keep them wet as I'm working. They do want to dry. And I can also spray it onto my panel. So my paints do move a little bit. I just want to make sure I'm not using too much, and so it doesn't get too drippy and too runny. And then I just grabbed, again, stealing from my daughter, stole some of her cheap brushes. These are the kind that come in like a pack of 25 for $5. And a bunch of just shop brushes for, you know, house painting. A palette knife for mixing some of my paints. I do have one brush that I use for oil painting. I like this one because it has the longer handle. I would love to find these kind of brushes with a long handle. I think that would be wonderful. I have attached handles, you know, just taping them or gluing them on in the past, but it's pretty flimsy. So let me mix that we're just about, that's the end of our break already. So let me mix those whites together.
Michael, this is Sherry. I was wondering if I could ask you some questions about acrylic painting versus oil painting.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't done any oil painting. I've done pigment sticks in encaustic, which are oil-based, and those are fun. But with acrylic painting, it seems really challenging to get those soft edges and, you know, to create that kind of luminous, blurred look. Does that have something to do with the quality of paint that I have, or the type of canvas that I have, or the kind of brushes I have?
Yeah, it has more to do with your edge quality. I'm hoping, yeah, that's a very good question. And I do get asked that a lot. I'm only going to be set, like I said, I'm only painting with black and white today.
Mm-hmm.
If I just go down here, you can white, black paint. We will see if I can get the feeling of luminosity only using black and white. The one that, if I can jump ahead, so I was going to treat today as if I was on a cooking show, right? Where we throw all the ingredients together in a pan, and then they pretend to throw it in the oven, and then they pull out the, the one that's already done. Unfortunately, the version that I've already got painted that I was going to color is a completely different reference photo. It is this big daddy here. So this is the one I was hoping to color. So there it is, black and white acrylic only, using, $3 tubes of kids quality paint and shop brushes only, 35-cent brushes. Okay. What do you think? Does that feel, even though it's black and white, like it has kind of a tonalist, luminous quality, even though it's only in black and white?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we look into that, and I can zoom in a little bit, you're going to see that there's various edges, right? So the great thing, what I love so much, and again, acrylics are old because that's what I started painting with in college. It's what I could afford. It's what, I could do quick assignments with, but I quickly moved to oils from there and almost never looked back. And so now here I am 20 years later, going back to acrylics to paint with, and back to gouache and back to watercolors, which I never did. I just said, you know what, I'm done with those. I've evolved. I'm on to the next thing. But now going back has been really fun. And what I sure love is my ability to layer and manipulate really quickly. And you'll see the key is adding paint. Having some paint. If I zoom back out and show you the tops here, there is probably like 4 or 5 different value ranges within the tops of these trees, which creates this very soft transition, which hopefully creates the illusion of depth versus the darks and crisp edges in the foreground. Does that make sense? So I've got soft edges. I've got, hopefully the kind of a feeling of light. My light source is going to be in this area, kind of right, but ducking behind these trees, reflecting down into this water and kind of washing across the landscape. You notice shadows as it goes towards the light, as the light's raking across here. Shadows behind the objects, then they roll over to the light side. Shadows on my banks, then they roll over towards the light and capture the light on top. My trees are doing the same thing, shadows as they roll to light, but this area is lighter than this, but it's still in the shadow of these trees. So it's not nearly as light as the grass that's catching that light, or the edges of the trees that are catching more light. And I could really probably push the lights, if I wanted to bring in the foliage here, and maybe I will do that as I paint. Let's just keep the whole idea of the cooking show going. So I pulled it out of the oven, and now I am going to decorate this cake. So this would be the next stage that we're going to do. And this is the same process that I did for this one. Is I went in, sorry, it's so glary. That's worse. Maybe if I angle the light slightly differently. But But you can see that I went in and I glazed it with yellow and red and a little bit of blue to create some of the greens and some of the shadow, cool shadow areas. And that was step, what, 1? That's step 2. I then came back in with thick paint and pulled out the details where I wanted them. I added flowers. Somebody just kind of offhandedly said, "You never paint flowers." I think maybe they saw my iris painting with the trail. And so I was like, well, I'll show them. I will paint flowers. And so I just kind of made that up. It's based on this photo, which is just a crappy photo I took of Beaverton Creek, less than a mile from my house. On the other side, I've got my black and white, just like I'm going to do for today's reference. On the other side, I got my color. So I painted basically this idea, you know, kind of changed it, made things feel like how I wanted them. I've kind of got this as a color reference a little bit, but you can see I didn't push all the reds and stuff in there. And this doesn't have any flowers. So there, that's just kind of the step-by-step. The nice thing is this one sold. I showed a video of me doing it online, and nice family from Bend contacted me and bought it. I will be delivering that. So I went ahead and did that. And then I decided, you know what? I had so much fun. I really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot. And so I did it bigger, and I don't quite know what colors I'll choose. I was almost thinking it might be nice to do it in purples and things, but I kind of like the yellowy greens and different colors that are in there. So we can discuss that as we get to this step. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah, Michael, can you glaze in acrylic? And if so, how would you do that?
You can glaze with acrylics. There are things called glazing mediums for acrylics. Also, there's something called open acrylics, and I unfortunately don't know much about them. That will keep your paints open a lot longer. You can also glaze with acrylics with just a little bit of water by thinning them down a little bit. Just like oils and adding paint thinner, you can create transparent washes. And that's what's neat about the acrylics, is you can just do it all so quickly. You know, within a couple of days, you can build this painting up, whereas with oils, before you glaze, it can take quite a long time. That is the process that was done with these, which, you know, many of you saw the demo with the Washington Painters Group. And these just kind of got, you know, especially this one, I really feel like, man, I went pretty crazy, but it's fun. It's interesting. It's an experiment. There's the background, which I need to get back in and touch up because evidently I wiped off some of the paint. Yeah, and this one was another one where I experimented by, let's add flowers. Let's pretend, actually, one of the gallery assistants at the show was kind of like, you don't paint pink very much. And I said, I'll show you. I'll paint pink. And pink and purple. And we named the painting after the girl's cat. So this is Hero Creek. Evidently, her cat's name is Hero. All right. Does that make sense, you guys? So what this allows me to do is to think in the different stages of my painting. So for those of you, or any of you who've been paying attention, what is the first step of my painting as I approach the canvas, or even on Photoshop or whatever else? Anybody?
Shape.
Shape.
Value.
What's even before shape? What's the main thing?
Design.
Design, thank you. So first thing is design, which we get from our shapes and our values. So I'm thinking big shapes, big values, fairly simplified. Again, this is going to be my reference. Would it be helpful at all if I taped it over here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed your first 6 weeks.
Oh, you're going to have to come back. I guess we'll have to do it again. I'll tell you what, I could repeat all 3 of these classes for the rest of my life and learn every time I do it. In fact, that's why I do it. I think I've told you guys that I love teaching the fundamentals because that's all there is in painting is the fundamentals. My paintings rarely fall apart because of some secret, weird little thing about painting. It's almost always comes down to shape, values, colors, edges, brushwork. Those are the things that make a painting. Paint consistency, which we're dealing with in this painting and the next painting. It's the fundamentals. We overthink, we overanalyze. I think when I was teaching at Clark College, I used to teach, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And I really realized in that I was teaching the same thing to everybody. Every level, I was teaching the exact same things, just expecting more, just going deeper into it. Just having them push themselves a little further, a little harder, hopefully asking them to think and ask better questions of themselves and of the reference and of the painting.
I see a profile in that black and white photo.
A profile? What do you mean? Like a silhouette?
Yeah, like a portrait. It looks like a white face facing off to the right.
Not sure I see it. I'm not sure what you were drinking during the break, but no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, totally. And when I look at it, like if I step back to the back of the studio here, all I'm going to see is this dark versus light shapes, right? It's very big, basic shapes. I'm going to start this painting by just giving this surface a very light gray coat. And that's going to allow me to, get rid of the white of the canvas for one, but it's also going to allow me to think in value. So I'm going to get this kind of big gray area. And then very quickly, and the cool thing is this will be dry in like 5 minutes. I'll be able to start, basically by the time I start making up the next thing, I'll be able to keep applying paint. Maybe a little lighter than that. This also gives me a little bit of texture, I notice. It'll allow my brush, as I apply thicker acrylic paint, to have something to grab onto. This panel's quite smooth. If you're painting with canvas or something else, you probably don't have that issue. But I do notice that this is very slick for acrylics. Got some brush hairs already in there. That is the bad thing about these shop brushes. They do love to shed at inopportune times. So try to pull those out. With oils, you can pull them out, for hours, but with the acrylics, they'll get locked in there real fast. So this would be like, if I was doing an oil painting, this would be like toning the canvas a little bit. Again, I got my little mister bottle here. I can just kind of spray things, keeps them moving, keeps them fluid. And I don't want dry flakes in my piles of paint down here because I'll pick those flakes up and move them up here and get odd textures when I don't want them. Again, you guys, I'm not telling any of you to approach your luminist painting that we're doing next with an acrylic underpainting unless you want to. You can totally do this as an oil painting. You can totally bypass the whole stage of creating your values and everything else that I'm doing if you want. I'm just showing you how my brain works and how I think about the painting. Okay, so my first concept is design and values, and I'm going to be thinking big shapes. So I'm just going to go a little bit darker.
Michael, could I ask what black you're using?
I believe I have Mars black. I have ivory black and Mars black on here. Again, I've got this one as a runny little kid quality one. You know, you'd use this to paint on poster boards or whatever. And then I do have possibly a little better one out of a tube. This again probably goes all the way back to my years in college. I'm surprised it still works, but it's a little thicker. As I progress in the painting and getting to some of the detail, some of the thicker acrylic will be useful for me. But I just kind of want to show you that, you know, you don't need $100 paints and $100 paintbrushes to paint. You can paint with what you have, especially when you're experimenting and playing and dealing with big concepts. That all of that said, yeah, there's times when my really expensive $120 tube of paint is just the right thing at the right place. And there's times when I need my $20 and $30 paintbrushes. I don't need them, but there's times where they do make, you know, better marks. They make the marks I need. But what I really won't abide by in my own work and in other people that I hang out with is when they make excuses and say, I can't paint because I don't have money for these expensive paints or these expensive brushes, or my studio isn't big enough and, you know, lit up beautifully enough, or I don't even have a canvas. Just, if I had a pen and a paper, I would be making art. Even if it was lined paper and a number 2 pencil, I would be doing something at all times. I had a friend who's, when he lost his studio space due to a move, didn't paint for 2 years because he didn't have his beautiful studio. I just can't imagine that. He's back at it and doing great work, but I just can't imagine me doing that. So no excuses. We use what we got. And if then, as we're playing and experimenting, we possibly, you know, upgrade our materials as we upgrade our skills. But inevitably in my classes or any presentations of other artists, you know, the question comes up, oh, what kind of brush are you using? Oh, what color of paint is that? And then they, okay, now we figured out the secret. Now we'll know how to make good art. But it's not that. So I'm just looking for big shapes. Just kind of sketching in my idea. I'm thinking very abstractly. I'm not thinking trees, water. I did think horizon line, but that's just kind of a marker for me because everything will relate to that. And I have my photo reference, but I'm not going to measure everything out. I sure could if I wanted to, if I wanted it to be perfect or it was important that it was perfect. But I'm just going to kind of go. I think I'm going to even cut down some trees in there just because it will hopefully make a more interesting design. And you can see that this is still pretty light. I could have gone straight to my dark, but I'm just kind of sketching in the idea of it. I'll quickly come back in and yeah, tonalist painting already. A really crappy one, but we got nice constrained value range. Not where I'm going to stay, but we need a little more dark on here. So I'm just kind of adding a little black to the pile of mid value, right? So I got my big pile of white paint on my left side, my big pile of dark black on my right side, and in between them, I'm just making up these different values. And again, I'm just thinking big shapes. So that's kind of the base of these grasses. I'm also looking for tangents and making sure things aren't lining up in ways that I don't want them to. I don't want the tops of these grasses to line up exactly with the edges of mark. That's the bottom of the grass is kind of in the foreground. I've been getting a little wishy-washy and going back and forth with that, but let's just make a decision. And now the reflection of those grasses. But again, I'm saying those things so that you know what I'm painting, but I'm trying not to think those things. I'm thinking over here is a darker area, over here is a lighter area. Just here's some darks over here, kind of next to some lights. Just thinking some shapes. The nice thing is this brush is making very sporadic, irregular marks. Maybe this isn't, this brush is gigantic. This is a full, 2-inch brush. That might be too big, but I have my smaller brushes here when I need them. But as I'm just thinking big shapes, I can't not think big shapes. I got a big brush. I can't even make little marks unless I just use barely the corner of it. And you do see that not every mark is the same. I am turning the brush, using my hands, using the motion of my arms. Yeah, my studio is pretty warm. I can feel that somebody turned the heat on downstairs. So my paints are wanting to dry up a little bit faster than I would like. So I'm just remembering to give them a little bit of a spritz to keep them a little bit wet so that their working quality stays somewhat similar. And I want to kind of straighten these lines a little bit so it doesn't feel like it's just flying up off the edge there. Just following my reflection straight down that tree back there. But yeah, I've really enjoyed, as I've been playing with this over the last 2 weeks, is how sketchy this is. How it really does feel like a black and white Polaroid picture, just slowly kind of evolving or appearing in front of me as I put. I'm not thinking things. I'm thinking just dark shape, light shape, big shape, small shape, hard edge, soft edge. As I put these things in there, normally I wouldn't have all of you wonderful people watching. So I would have to pretend I'm the viewer, and I would step back and say, are the shapes, values, colors that I'm putting together in the right place, creating the illusion of what I'm hoping to. Let's get rid of this unnecessary little dark spot over there. It's just confusing.
Michael, what kind of canvas do you use and where do you get it?
Sure, thank you. This is a birch panel, and it's on a so it's a birch panel, and it's got a 1 5/8 inch support on the side, so you can see the raw wood underneath here. And I buy them pre-gessoed. Even though I don't quite love the gesso, oftentimes I'll come back in and add a coat of my preferred gesso over the top, which is just a really cheap gesso, which I can't remember the name of right now. Just because I like the texture a little bit. This is really quite smooth. And they're made by a company out of Salem called American Easel, which is, I've bought a bunch of little cheap easels for different schools I've taught at and different companies for them. If you can see there, right there where my thumb is American Easel. This is the 16 by 20 that I'm painting on right now, 16 by 20 inch. And it's the cradled birch gesso panel. You can buy those at some stores. I think Blick carries some. If not, they also carry a imported version of it, which I think is from China, which is a thinner profile, lighter weight but I think works pretty well as well. But I like American Easel. They're great people. They work with the Oregon Society of Artists. They're the ones that provide our panels for the 200 by 200 show, where it's all, you know, they give us like 200 12 by 12 panels. I just like them. I enjoy actually driving down there. I think they will deliver, but I actually drive down there and pick up my stuff. And I usually pick up, you know, almost $1,000 worth of them at a time. So it's worth it to me to not have those shipped. And it's just to Salem, which is only, you know, an hour away. And I like hanging out with them. I like visiting. I like seeing their factory. I also do my prints when I do, like that one that I'm giving away is actually, they do the printing on this panel for me. And I really like that.
If you were to get a cheaper canvas or paper from Michael's, let's say, just to practice on, what would you get?
I would get anything. And what I would invest in is the gesso. Get a decent tub of gesso, because a lot of times the gesso that they do is a simple one coat, which is not enough really if you want your painting to last. I would also get a slightly heavier weight. I do not like the lightest weight canvas. It's just too flimsy, too crackly. So I will go ahead and get a, you know, I don't ever get the cheapest unless it's some big sale. But for playing and experimenting, again, just painting is all we care about. It doesn't, you know, we don't need to worry about if it lasts for hundreds of years right away. But what I do is I re-gesso them and I'll sand them, which can be some work. If they say double or triple primed or double or triple gessoed, then you know, it's not as important. And then the one thing I really want you to check when you guys are buying canvases from stores, especially somewhere like Michael's or Joann's or any of the craft shops, is that a lot of times they're really loose. Meaning, like if I touch it, the canvas really goes in and out like a soft drum. I want it like a very firm drum. And you can tell just by literally tapping on it. If you pick up a couple different canvases at the stores and just give them a little dum 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 like a drum, you'll really be able to tell. I don't want to be able to push in very far because I hate it when you can see the wood stretcher bars behind it. You guys have probably all had that experience. It's horrible when you're trying to paint and the wood stretcher bar you keep pushing against it. Yeah, but I'm not too picky. I mean, I keep buying, you know, supplies for my daughter and her friends, and I keep stealing them. I also really like just the cardboard with canvas over the top, the cheap, you know, you buy them in 10 packs, little 8x10s. You know, those, I don't sell those. Those are just for me to play with, but they're great for little plein air sketches and different things. Another thing is if you have a Home Depot or, you know, or if you're handy at all and can cut panels, is just getting some, you want acid-free masonite boards. You can just gesso over those. Again, I use cardboard. I don't use textured cardboard though. I look for smooth cardboard and I'll just gesso that. It's just, you know, gesso is just like a primer. Yeah, lots and lots of options, especially if you're not too cared about archivalness. You know, again, these are a lot of things I wouldn't sell, but sometimes that's really refreshing because I'm not worried about making a beautiful final product. I'm just experimenting, trying out new ideas. If you're going into your paintings trying to make a masterpiece or scared that you're not going to make a masterpiece, every time your knowledge will be very stunted. Because if we are scared of ruining our painting every time, then we're not taking risks. And it is in taking the risks, in swinging for the fences and painting a lot and painting often and making mistakes that we will learn the fastest. Does that make sense? I know a lot of my students kind of almost like get mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth. It's great when they work out. And sometimes our paintings we don't care about as much. Like some of the ones I paint on these little cardboard panels, because I'm so free, so liberated and so not beholden, to the end results turn out really wonderful. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I hadn't painted that on cardboard, you know, non-archival material. So right now I'm just kind of giving myself some darks that I'm seeing that is kind of hopefully give me my structure. You kind of see it slowly evolving out of the mist like a Polaroid picture, I hope, a little bit. Maybe it's time to pick up a little bit smaller of a brush so I'm not just making crazy big marks all the time here. And I do notice that these marks are getting really repetitive, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab a medium-sized brush. So this is just a 1 inch versus the 2 inch. So yeah, now what I'm doing, now that I've got my, supposedly my lights, but they're not really my lights, and I put in some darks, I'm gonna go ahead and think about my darkest darks now and just give myself my structure. I look to the shadows of it, the darks, and that will give me the foundation that I need to build on for bringing in my lights. And I'm just letting some texture show through. Man, these paints are drying so quickly, I apologize. Any of you guys think you might play with this idea of kind of doing a value painting or an acrylic kind of underpainting, just kind of building it up slowly, and or not even that slowly, pretty quickly. I think that's what I like about it. It's a pretty quick way to build my painting.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Just have fun. See how it works for you. Maybe something, and you know, who knows, maybe next week when class comes up, I'll be like, don't do it. All my paints are just falling off. This is a crazy bad idea. But I guess it doesn't matter again, because we're not trying to make archival museum pieces. We are trying to just learn about the different stages of painting. Because if I do learn that, man, I should not be doing this with acrylic, that's fine. I'll just do it with oils. And then I'll know I've got a good foundational painting. And I do know of a large number of painters that do start a lot of their paintings with acrylics. Some painters do start their paintings with watercolor, actually, just to get their very loose idea in. And you can do that actually on gessoed panel. You can paint with watercolor very quickly just to get your big ideas in. It won't add any texture or anything like that, but it's, you know, it's not going to affect your oils once they're dry.
You could almost just do a glaze over that.
Yeah, getting there, right? I mean, it's pretty hideous in real life. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting once you start locking in some big shapes. It doesn't take much. It's amazing to me, even though I've been doing this for 20 whatever years, however old I am. So golly, 20, almost 25 years. It's still just, I just love watching it just kind of appear, whether it is in oils or acrylics or watercolors or gouache or colored pencils or pens or whatever. It's just always magic to me. And again, when I can get out of my head a little bit and just make the process enjoyable, there's something called flow that I'm always kind of chasing the idea of flow. When you get lost in your painting and time just disappears. Ah, it's magic. I love it so much. It doesn't happen all the time or nearly as much as I would like it to, and what I found is in my pursuit of flow, you guys all know what I mean when I say flow. You guys have had it probably when you're gardening. You can even have it when you're doing yard or housework, or whatever it is. It can be done anytime, where you just kind of disappear into the work. The world kind of disappears. It's just you and the thing you're working on. It's just you and the challenge before you. And it's just enough of a challenge that you get pulled into it, but not so much of a challenge that, you know, you're, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? How am I doing this? It's just this kind of, yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. And at that point, it's almost like the painting is creating itself. You're not even involved anymore.
Amen.
It's being channeled.
Yes, there have been paintings where, you know, people ask me about them. I'm like, I don't know how that happened. I literally went to another place, and when I came back to, some elves or somebody had jumped in and painted this for me. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I remember once in high school, it happened while I was playing tennis, and I was not a good tennis player. And it was a competition, and I just slaughtered this guy. I just crushed him. And it just felt like I was watching a movie of somebody much better than me, who trusted their their tennis racket and trusted the ball to do what they intended for it to do, which just didn't happen for me. I just never got good at tennis, really. But one game it happened. And then I've had it happen a number of times in painting. I've had it happen, while hiking, while being around nature. So anyways, I don't want to say it's the pursuit, because that's not my end goal, but if I could figure out how to tap into that on a much more regular basis, I think about how good my paintings would be on a more regular basis. So how do I set myself up? I think about that. How, like, when that happened, what was I doing? Right? What was different? I probably wasn't teaching a class and talking the whole time. Was I listening to a podcast or an audiobook? No, because that takes me out of the moment, even though I do love listening to those things when I'm painting. Was I listening to loud rock music? No, because those also take me out of the moment a little bit, or they take me to them. It's often when I'm listening to classical music that just kind of disappears into the background. A lot of times I'll put one single song, maybe like a 7-minute classical piece, and not a really rambunctious one either, and put it on repeat, so that it's there, it's keeping me company, but it disappears, right? It just kind of becomes part of the studio atmosphere. Maybe I'll have a candle, so my studio doesn't just smell like paint. I guess it's a little bit like taking a nice soaking bath. What do you do so you can disappear into that bath or into that thing? And how do I do that more often? I have found that by breaking my painting into its pieces, I'm not having to think about all the pieces at one time. I'm just thinking abstract shapes right now. I'm just thinking lights, darks, big. I don't care too much if I get the grasses in exactly the right spots. I just want the feeling of this beautiful little marshland that's right near my house that I visit often. Maybe it doesn't even feel exactly like the photo, but I know how the marsh makes me feel. Sometimes when I'm over there, I love going over and watching the beavers, and I love watching the ducks. And right now the irises are all growing in. I'm definitely going to go there today, because I bet you the irises are in full bloom over there, and there's lots of them. I've been kind of getting excited about those when my wife and I go for walks over there. But by kind of simplifying the painting, not thinking of all the edges and all the technical little stuff, but the big stuff, I'm able to kind of get into that, hopefully, that zone a little more often, a little more readily. Just going to spend a little bit more time on here, and then we're going to throw it in the oven, and we're going to pull out our other miracle, or whatever, half-baked cake.
Are you thinking of this as a tonalist or a luminist painting?
Right now, I'm thinking of it completely as a tonalist. and in about 3 or 4 minutes, I may start to think of it a little more like a luminist. And the truth is, I don't like title them. I don't title my own style. It's kind of like, our job is to put the right shapes, right values, right colors in the right places, and then the viewer gets to decide that. I kind of think that's the same thing about my style. I think about it some, but I just want to paint like Mike. I don't care to paint like George Innes. I love aspects of George Innes. I that's up to other people to give me the isms, to tell people what they're looking at. You're looking at Mike Orwick's Tonalist piece and Luminous piece. I'm just presenting those to you as a class so that you kind of know about them and you can think about them. But I don't really think, like, when I sit down to paint very often, in this class, it's different. But I don't think like, oh, I'm going to paint a tonalist painting today. Oh, I'm going to paint a luminist painting today. I just hope that I'm going to make a pretty picture, or a picture that I've enjoyed making and that other people will enjoy looking at. It was during this weekend show, I literally had, people come up and say, this is Mike. He's one of my favorite tonalist painters I've ever, seen. And then the next person, not joking, walked up and said, this is Mike. He's one of my favorite impressionist painters, or, one of the better impressionist painters out here at the coast. So I don't think of it, tonalism and impressionism as really piggybacking on each other. And I don't really think of myself as an impressionist painter, but it was cool to hear because I love impressionist paintings. And if that's how they relate to my paintings, I'm not going to tell them, no, I'm a tonalist. You're looking at it wrong. You're seeing the wrong thing, because they're seeing what they're seeing. And they're also, talking about, they may not even know what a tonalist painter is. If they're talking about impressionism and stuff, they may just know, a couple art styles. But if I were personally, thanks for asking, to give myself a genre or a title in my work, I would say that I'm a tonalist or a luminist with an impressionistic leaning. Like my work, it doesn't look like French Impressionism or even California Impressionism, but I do love broken brushwork. I love being able to see the colors through each other. I love being able to see, I love marbled brushwork, which we'll talk about when we get to Impressionism a little bit. So, maybe that's why I even picked the paintings that I wanted to present to you guys in this class. Besides just the different edge qualities that they're known for, is that it's my favorite kind of paintings are tonalist, luminist, and impressionist paintings. And maybe, remember I said I wanted to talk a little bit about style. I had an instructor in college when somebody had asked, how do you find your style? Because in college, that's all you're thinking about for some reason, because we just want to all become famous overnight or whatever, get into galleries overnight. How do we find our style? And without missing a heartbeat, he just said, find your 3 favorite painters and steal from all of them. I was like, man, that is actually good advice. That is a good jumping off point. It's not where you're going to end, because, every couple of weeks, you probably got a new favorite artist if you're looking at a bunch of art. But it was a great thing. And then you look at them and you say, okay, what is it about these artists that I like? Right? Is it the brushwork? Is it the subject matter? Is it the colors? Is it the design that they're coming up with? What is it that speaks to me about these artists' work? And when I was in college, I was very, I came from a farm in the country, so I didn't know much about painting. I hadn't been to many galleries. I didn't know hardly any artists. So my experience was mostly through illustrators. So, when we were asked and thinking about that, I said Norman Rockwell, Maxfield Parrish, and one other artist whose name I can't remember right now. And he's like, oh, those are illustrators. And that was the first time I ever went, oh, there's a difference. I didn't know that artists and illustrators were considered differently. And I still don't like to. I think good paintings are good paintings. And I love paintings that tell stories, even if it's my landscapes. I hope they tell a story. But that got bright, a little too bright. Knock that back down. So it's got some gray in there. Okay, I'm gonna not completely finish this painting. What I'm gonna do is jump ahead to the next step in this. And we've got a very, very muted, right? It doesn't have black, but it goes really dark and it never gets light, right? If we were to pull up our grayscale, which I'll go grab, I think I have one. Where did we just put that grayscale? Sorry, not finding it. Not going to waste time looking. But if you can imagine from white to black, this painting definitely leans towards the darker side, right? It doesn't really have any of the really light values. If I hold up something white against it, you can see how much lighter the white is as compared to my lightest areas. But because this is going to be a luminist painting, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in light. I do know that I'm going to do some glazing in this painting, and that's up to you. You guys do not have to do glazing in your painting this week, but if you want to, keep in mind that anytime you glaze, your painting is getting a little bit darker. Okay, so if I know I'm going to glaze, I probably want my values a little bit lighter than how I think they're going to end up. So let's get some other values in there, shall we? Bam, look at that. All right, what a difference. And that little bit of lighter gray, I'm actually going to leave some of that on those edges as I kind of drag this paint across and use this white to give some texture. I can make it as refined and clean and make those edges as sharp as I want, but sometimes these little specklings of gray, especially since I know they're kind of, people are going to probably read those as leaves, can be pretty cool. And the cool thing is that this is acrylic. So let's say I accidentally cover an area that makes me sad. You know, with oils, I could probably wipe it back off. With acrylics, not as easy, but then I just give it 5 minutes and I can come back in with a little bit of something, a little bit of value that I want on there. So that's what I really have been enjoying, is just the going back and forth between lights and darks. Because with oils, we typically are painting from darks to lights more. With the acrylics, I still am kind of thinking that way, but I can go back and forth a little quicker.
Michael, can you talk about your decision of when you do your background and you did the whole canvas in the gray, as opposed to like taking the part at the top that would be, or the parts that would be the lightest, and maybe doing your original underpainting in white and then adding in the gray values of the underpainting on top of that?
Yeah, sure. Again, this just comes to know thyself. And you're only going to know thyself, yourself, by painting. And I know that my dyslexic brain likes negative shapes. I like working and carving. I love the idea of carving and painting. I like treating it like, so it's just going to come down to you. If you think very linearly and, you know, you're almost thinking more like a drawing, you see that I'm not thinking like a drawing at all, right? There's nothing in here that's drawn. It's only painted. So by doing it this way, I'm still never thinking background, foreground, this or that very much. I'm just thinking different values. And this also allows me to hopefully come in and make some really interesting shapes that I wouldn't brush, right? These edges that I'm creating in here, look how interesting and odd those are, right? Maybe they're not for you. Maybe they're, you know what I mean? Maybe they're too sloppy and too interesting, but boy, do they feel organic to me.
That makes sense.
And they're not, they're somewhat controlled, but I'm letting the brush, letting the previous surface quality that I created do some of the work for me. yes, it's planned, but I've gotten to a point in painting where I've painted enough and I can control enough that it doesn't delight me as much as discovery and play and trying to create a relationship between me and my paints. And that's a hard one to explain, but I find such delight in like little areas like this, whereas like, man, I don't know if I could have planned that, but that's kind of fun. Or this odd turned shape over here that's not really in the reference, but I actually like that because it kind of leads us into the painting, and maybe I could hint at something over here a little bit as well, and maybe that will kind of help keep the viewer in the scene a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. So, and then I can always, like I said, I can always go back in and refine and control. But at this stage, it's kind of like, you know, what do you guys want to do? What do you guys feel like? Are you feeling wild and crazy? Or are you feeling really controlled and tight edge? That's why all of our paintings are going to be different. And that's what's so great is we're all, I mean, even if I painted this painting again and started over in 15 minutes, it's going to be a different painting. And I like that. I like the painting to be about the moment and about the feeling and the friends you're with, hanging out with, you know, all you guys in here kind of influencing me a little bit, the conversation that I'm having. Yeah, it's about all those things. It is interesting, you know, when people are like, can you paint that again for me, but bigger? I'm like, nope, but I can paint, you know, something kind of in that line. I could use the same reference, but it's going to be a very different painting.
Okay, if you're not going to use anything except glazing, I understand. But if you're going to use something besides just glazing, what's the next step of making this more colorful?
I personally would still glaze into this. And then you've got a nice harmonized background. You've got a nice harmonized painting. And then and maybe you don't get it this complicated. Maybe you're not stressing out about these little weird leaves and transitions. Maybe you just, if you're doing it this way and not as concerned about, yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. Maybe my drawing would be the first 3 minutes of that. I just got my big shapes. I've got it kind of designed. You know, it's an interesting design, right? With everything going off the top, you're seeing most of it in the reflection. Yeah, it's a strange design. So I could just have used this in that first couple of minutes where I literally made big brush marks and said, yeah, you know what? There's something here worth going further with. Or you said, nope, that's stupid. And that 5 minutes was well spent because I didn't go down that line of making a dumb painting or with a bad design. And so then you can just paint over. I mean, you're going to paint over the acrylics. So don't worry about that. You're covering most of your acrylics. Anyways, so I'm not too worried about preserving too much of it.
Michael, would you glaze in acrylic or oil?
I personally am going to glaze in oil. Okay. I've never glazed with acrylics as far as I can remember. But we did have glazing medium, but it's not straight. We did have glazing medium, but I stole it and used it for the edges on the sides of my canvas that I paint black. I mixed that with the black gesso to make it shinier and less, doesn't get as dirty as fast. So anyways, I don't know. I haven't used acrylic glazing, but I do know it's a thing and I have owned it. I just didn't use it for what it was supposed to be used for. So I apologize. So how many acrylic painters do we have in the group? Just one?
I paint in acrylic.
Can you get back, or can you talk to that at all? Do you know?
Well, I'm just finding it a real challenge following you, not, because it just behaves so differently. But I just glaze with water. I got an extender this week that I haven't tried yet.
Yeah, maybe try to get some glazing medium.
Glazing medium, yeah.
Here's the container. So if you guys want, I can glaze this with acrylic and we can see.
Yeah.
I actually added a lot of water to this to extend it. So we'll see what happens. All right, you guys can pick, as I'm finishing up here, go ahead and kind of think about what color. Man, what color would be a good.
So pretty.
I was gonna say, like for glazing, I have a friend, Susan Curlington, and she's big on acrylic glazing, and she just layers it. So she layers colors on top of each other. So it's a really thick glaze, but she runs some classes, they're fun.
I don't know if that's glazing.
Well, she just puts a tiny bit of acrylic paint into a ton of this glazing medium.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then layers primary colors on top of each other until it gets like this really luminescent colory thing going on. It's all acrylic.
It doesn't get all muddy because.
But she talks to that a lot in her classes.
Right, like if I glazed in green and then I glazed red, green and red, when you mix them, go to brown. So you got to be aware. So that's why I would glaze yellow and then red and let it go to orange, So look at your color wheel when glazing and decide, what happens when these two colors mix, because it's still going to happen even in glazing. Again, I think about putting layers of glass on top of each other. If I put a yellow piece of a glass over a red piece of glass, it makes an orange image. So be aware of that. You'll see when I glaze, oftentimes I keep my primaries kind of away from each other a little bit. So like my red will go to my yellow. And then if I want it to go to green, I'll let it touch the blue. But you've got to decide where the colors are going to go. So this is not a great example because it's just a very rudimentary glaze. But within this painting, there's some yellow, but I never let the yellow and the blue touch. The yellow only touches the red, which makes kind of an orange area, and it's barely yellow. And then the red, wherever it touches, the blue becomes purple. And then wherever the blue is just by itself, it stays pretty blue. Does that make sense? So you got to think about that when you're glazing. If you're not trying to make a brown tonalist painting and your glazing keeps turning brown, that's probably what's happening, is you're mixing a primary and a secondary from across the color wheel towards each other. Trying to, it's hard with the camera. I can't stand right in front of this. So it's really important when you're doing reflections that they come straight down. You don't want your reflections bending off, really. So often doing that with my hands, just kind of a straight down. Just kind of dragging across a little bit to get some water effects in there. You can tell I'm like trying to get through this really fast, not being very cautious. There's nothing over here, so there's no use for this reflection coming down here. 1, 2, with a little more light in between, a little more light in between. Can't see the top, so I get to make up the top down here. There's ducks and stuff in my references, but not in my painting. That's cool. I don't need them. They're not as important. They might be fun, like little discoveries for somebody if they cared, but you guys can put them in if you want them. Maybe I'll throw them in with oil paints later. Now I'm just kind of one more quick pass, bringing out some of the values on top where I see them possibly. And again, I'm not so worried because I do know that I'm going to come back over this, me personally, I'm going to come over this with some oil paints and I can do whatever I want. I can literally repaint this whole thing with oil paints. So this is just getting my design and my different things going, having fun. And I am having fun. Hopefully you guys can see that in this. Hopefully you can see that, man, that looks fun. Mike's having fun. Hopefully that shows in my end result. I think people can tell when a painting is labored and excruciating.
Did you ever use a different brush? You're still using the little 1-inch shot brush?
Now I'm on a, yeah, I guess.
Oh yeah. Now that really.
I've used 3 brushes. I've used a 2-inch, a 1-inch, and a 1.5 inch.
But they're all
one's in the water down here. Ugh.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean the detail will come in the oil painting if I want it. I'm just going to scratch in the tops of some grasses that are kind of in this foreground area that are catching a little more light. And the cool thing about this brush is it's makes really irregular marks. So I'm not thinking grass though, even though I just told you I'm painting grass. I'm looking up here and I'm going, that's an interesting little mark that goes this way. And there's some interesting marks that kind of go off here. And here's, oh, I like these light values that kind of shoot off up here. And again, if I was just thinking grass, my tendency might be to grass. And then you end up with just very artificial, very much the language of grass, the symbolism of grass. And I'm going to trust my viewer, hopefully, to go, you know what, that weird little dashy mark there and that little irregular thing that he's got going over there, those are probably grasses. Not easy to do, you guys. It's hard to trust our viewers, but give them some credit. Just imagine really brilliant, wealthy, knowledgeable art patrons that are going to come and look at your painting, and they're going to thank you because you let them be a part of the process. You let them put their imagination into your painting, and they feel like it's theirs because they're part of it. They feel included. And again, that is nothing, I'm not putting down anybody's style. If your style is photorealism and you just want to tell everything to the nth degree, but that's what makes you happy, rad, do that. And again, going back to our little talk on style, which has never been a talk yet, but love to hear your guys' ideas on that. Is looking at the art of others and saying, what attracts me to it? Why do I find myself going back and looking at Karen's paintings all the time? What is it that keeps bringing me back? Why am I so curious about what she's going to be doing? Or what is it that Susan's doing that I sure wish I could figure out and get into my paintings a little bit, or anything like that? So what is it about it? So I have acrylic gel, and I will use some of that and we will glaze this painting. How's that sound? We'll see what that does. I don't even know what it'll do. Actually, I have acrylic matte medium, which is a semi-transparent. It'll make a little bit of a haze, but I do know that oil paints love to go on top of matte medium. Kind of like what's that deck of hodgepodge? It's kind of like that. And I do know that oil paints like that surface. It's very porous, and it's transparent. When I used to paint oil paints on top of my very, very thought out drawings, like very complicated drawings back in my illustration days, I used to do them on hard paper, the drawings, and then I would put the hodgepodge or matte medium on top to protect them. So I do know that that's a thing that we can do. So I've never tried to glaze with it. So let's try that. You guys down for that?
Sure.
Okay, are you talking about Mod Podge?
Mod Podge. I guess I haven't been decoupaging in a while. Mod Podge.
I thought maybe there was another product I didn't know about.
Nope, I just invented it in my head. All right, too bad I poured out so much beautiful acrylic paint. I'm going to look for a little tub to see if I can save it. We have so many to-go containers from ordering in food during COVID. I'll never run out of containers, so I'm just taking my acrylic paints, putting them in there. I add a little bit of water, and I'm just going to add both my black and my white, and I'm just going to make a nice neutral gray, hopefully, whatever it ends up. I just put it in there. I'll throw a lid on top, shake it up, and have some paint for the next time. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah, 5-minute break. Let me clean this craziness up. I'll bring out the matte medium, and we'll experiment together. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because I have the other one in the oven that we'll pull out, and then we're going to glaze into that. Everybody having fun? Is this cool? Are you guys understanding the concepts here? I'm going to say yes. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
I just logged on. This is Lisa Holmberg. And I was just wondering, so is that an oil? You just painted in oils and you're going to put acrylic over it?
No, I would never do that.
Okay, I didn't think so. That's what I thought I heard, and it's my fault because I joined late. I just stopped teaching, so.
No, that's a good question. I'm glad you clarified it. I wouldn't want you to go out and say, Mike Orwick suggests acrylics.
I didn't think, because that's what I did wrong in the first class, so.
And
Okay.
over acrylics should be pretty good. I notice I gave it the caveat should. And now we are going to actually do is just for this experiment, you gotta, hopefully it dries. It might not dry enough. I might just skip this step because I don't think the paint's going to dry enough to glaze. So maybe I'll just get back to us on that.
So that's acrylic though, there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The only thing I painted with is black and white acrylic paint.
Okay. And then when we're toning the paintings for the tonalist paintings, do we tone that with oil, right? Oil plus the paint?
Yeah, when you go back and watch, I talked about that quite a bit.
Okay.
Experimenting, with doing it with acrylics, just because I kind of enjoy this whole process, just like I just did. So this last half hour or 45 minutes or whatever has been painting this.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it.
I just love the back and forth, the give and take that acrylics allow in a much more expedited fashion than oils. And so, yeah, I wanted to show that. And just before I started that, I showed here's kind of a finished version of where we're gonna go now.
Oh, wow. Wow, very cool.
What we're doing is that same image roughly, but it's quite a bit bigger. That was yeah. So,
Well, I don't want to cut into your break time. I just had that quick
there's no
question.
break time. I just took a break so I could transition.
Oh, wow.
Rest of the week.
That's gorgeous. I mean, it's just beautiful just the way it is. I mean,
So, but yeah, now we get to play. Woo! Oh man, I gotta zoom out. This guy's big. Oh.
I'm sure there's a market for that too, because a lot of people like to decorate with black and white.
Sure. I just hate those people. No, yeah, totally. I do think about that a lot. But right now, again, yeah, it might be something I come back to, and maybe even glazing into this and painting on with black and white oils, you know, that might be kind of cool. I don't know. But yeah, right now it's all about, does this strategy of mine work? So I just am experimenting and playing and trying new stuff. I was gonna glaze into that other painting with fluorescent yellow and red, but I'm afraid it's just not dry enough to glaze into, and I don't want us just to sit here and look at it while it dries. So I'm gonna skip to this one. Change our reference. So yeah, here was the reference for the one we were just painting. And then I changed it to a black and white, did that little painting, that little sketch that we saw. And I look forward to getting back to it and adding color or whatever we end up doing with it.
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, now my biggest decision. I know we're still on break, so never mind. My silent decision. I'll go be quiet for 2 minutes and think about it. All right, looks like people are back. My instinct tells me to stay with the yellows and the reds on this one. It is the reference I have over here. I desperately want to do cool blues and purples and a lot of grays, but I may just save that for another one. So you guys okay if I just do a typical Mike Orwick glowy, glowy, glow?
Yes.
All right. Just when you're writing my critique at the end of class, don't say, man, all he does is yellow and orange and pink or peach paintings, even though that's exactly what I'm about to do. You guys can't see it, but I'm actually shaking right now. A little bit nervous as I step up, because yeah, I like it. It's always scary, but we got to be willing to kill our babies to keep learning. It's a horrible saying, but I love it. It stuck with me from one of my instructors in college, really cute, Elsa Warnick, my instructor in freshman year of college. She was such a cute, beautiful, adorable grandma of a painting teacher. And I just remember when she told me that, Michael, you have to be willing to kill your babies. Can't love them the whole time while you're working on them. All right, let me get rid of these acrylic water brushes so I don't accidentally pick them up. I've got my paint thinner right here off screen. Maybe I can even move this camera back just an inch or two. Don't dare move anymore, otherwise the cord will pull out and we'll lose our connection. I'm going to use transparent oil paints, which I should have been pulling out during the break. I'm going to grab my Indian yellow. I have a beautiful gold ochre, which is a transparent color. That might be fun. Maybe I'll use a little bit of that. I'm going to use my quinacridone red, which is a really, leans towards the what many people might consider an alizarin. So a little bit of that. And then for my blue, I could use either my French ultramarine or my manganese blue, or could even use phthalo blue, but that would be too strong of a blue for me. But if you're consider yourself more of a colorist and you like bright colors, you may want to look into the phthalo blue. I'm going to go to my instinct first was to go towards my manganese blue, which is a greener blue, but I'm actually going to pull out my ultramarine blue, which is a redder blue, more of a purpley blue, just because I know when I mix that with yellow, it's going to make these really kind of ugly but very naturalistic Oregon greens, because my Indian yellow leans towards orange, leans towards red. So I've got a little bit of red mixed into these two colors. So they're going to make a real earthy, olivey kind of a green when I mix them together, when I let them.
Michael, what yellow?
I've got my Indian yellow, and then
Indian yellow. Okay.
I grabbed a color that you guys probably don't own, but it's called gold ochre. And I'll see, I kind of think that might make some really nice colors in the grasses as well. So what I'm going to do, we've got about 25 minutes left, is I'm going to glaze this, and then I'm going to direct my glazes, model it, as it were. And then I'm going to let that tack up until tomorrow or the next day. And then I would come back in with my thicker oil paints and do, make it into an oil painting, basically. So right now I'm just going to create kind of a harmonious glaze. I could glaze it all one color, but I'm going to have yellowier, golder skies, yellowier, golder tops of the grasses, yellow, goldy reflections. And then my tree line back here, because again, my sun is setting right in this area. That's why this area is blasted out value-wise. And it's going to be much more red and oranges throughout the tops of the trees. And I'm going to use some of that in here and some of that in the reflections. And then where I've got these delicate grasses kind of against, I'm going to bring some of that orange into those as well, as if they were getting backlit and picking up some of that. I'll also probably bring some of that onto the lit side of these bushes and on these bushes. And then there's not really obvious, but this is a bush. This dark thing is a bush. So I'm going to probably bring some of that into the outside areas there. Does that make sense, you guys? So I'm thinking about this very flat surface as 3 dimensions, okay? So that's something that's really important as let me grab a pencil and see if I can illustrate it slightly. So I have this very flat surface, but how I want to think of it as if I were floating above it, okay? So and pretend it's kind of like a stage setting, okay? So beyond these trees, all you have is light. So then I'm gonna have my line of trees, and I'm gonna show you what I'm drawing here in just a second. Okay, so that's not a great example because it's still in perspective how I drew the water. But if I were to be floating above this and looking down at it, this is the back line of trees here. And then within this scene, I've got this equals these trees over here. Sorry about the shaking paper. And then that bush that I was talking about over there. So my light's coming from back here. So things back here are being affected by the light the most, especially because I'm going to make this very atmospheric. And then the light's going to be wrapping around this, wrapping around this. It's also striking on top where the creek is not, is the ground. And then the creek is reflecting the light of the sky. Does that make sense? So as things go back towards the top of my page, they're further away from me. So if you can allow your brain to think in 3 dimensions from time to time, not at the beginning. In the beginning, you want to think flat, almost puzzle shape pieces. And then by using our edges, our illusion of atmosphere and perspective, we are going to create that illusion of depth on a 2-dimensional space. Forgot to get some white out of the tube. And you squeeze a touch of the yellow ochre, gold ochre. It says it's transparent, but it sure does not look transparent when I squeeze it out. So I'll be curious. We'll see. That might get saved for when I'm building up the oil paint onto the surface. All right. I grabbed nope, not that one. Grab another big brush. Just any of my shop brushes. Whoa, didn't clean this one very well. Probably grab a couple of them. And I'm just going to scumble in some paint. I'm going to take my Galkid and I'm going to mix about a 25% Galkid to 75% paint thinner. The Galkid basically, because I'm putting on thin paint, is going to work like a glue because the paint thinner destroys the glue of the paint, the natural paint. I'm adding back in some glue, the Galkid, so that sorry, it's out of focus. What's it seeing? Oh, my brush handle. Should help create a better bond. Does that make sense? I don't want, because if I do a really thin, just paint thinner glaze on there, I've destroyed the glue that's in the oil paint. And I don't want my painting to fall off eventually, just to peel off the acrylics. So, shall we go? I feel like we should have some like exciting music because this part's crazy. All right, here we go. Yellow, Indian yellow. Oops, I forgot to mix my Galkid in there. And again, I'm still just thinking that this is the underpainting for my oil painting that's about to start. So I've got kind of like, if I treated this acrylic painting as if it was my drawing, my building up my structure. Scrub, 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 scrub. This acrylic painting is very nice and dry. Wow, hard to see, isn't it? Huh. I'm to a point in my paintings, you know, I've painted enough paintings and I want it to be scary a little bit. I want there to be a bit of mystery a little bit because I'm learning. There's a difference between learning and performing, and that is the same in anything, right? Like a musician goes over their scales every time, and that's kind of what we're doing in this class. We're going over the fundamentals, we're going through our scales. And you know, you don't see that unless you get to the performance early. You're not going to see the orchestra going through their scales, but they're still doing it every time. They're still working on their basics, their fundamentals, making sure everything's warmed up. And they'll also maybe be just, you know, not reading the sheet music, just experimenting and playing. And then there's a time when you are performing. And that could be like where I'm in front of a big group, like right now, but you know, this is a class. Or like a quick draw event, or let's say I'm doing a commission. Maybe a commission isn't a great time to be experimenting. That's performance time. That's where I put all my previous knowledge into play because I want to make and sell a good finished painting. There we go. I'm going to now bring in my
Michael,
Yes.
I have a question. I missed your glazing, you know, demonstration. I have a question about this. You're not putting this Indian yellow over the whole painting. You're just putting it in the areas that are getting the light. Is that it?
I guess I am kind of thinking like that. It will travel into those spaces, but yeah, you notice that I kind of left it out of a lot of the shadowy areas. There's enough atmosphere that light's coming through that I know that in between us and these back trees, there's less of the atmosphere. There's less of that light bouncing around in the moisture. And then, yeah, and I could cover the whole thing, and I probably will a little bit as I come back in and start wiping it down a little bit. But yeah, I want my shadows to be cooler and darker and not, you know, they're not getting this yellow light. Again, if we think in 3 dimensions, it's not getting into here as much. It's not getting on this bank. It's not getting on the shadow sides of the trees as much. So I just mixed a little bit of earth red in with some of my Indian yellow, or not earth red, my quinacridone red in with some of my Indian yellow. So I made it orange that I'm gonna now beautiful. So I'm just kind of, yeah, this is just big idea of light right now is kind of what I'm doing. This will kind of create like the illusion of some transparency in these trees a little bit, like, you know, the between the atmosphere and the other stuff going on. Now I'm going to switch to more of my pure red and see if I can bring some of that in a little bit here. It seems scary, and it is scary, but at the same time, I do know that I have a little bit of time. These oils are soaking in to those acrylics because the acrylics are porous, but they're not soaking in so fast. I can get, if I took a paint thinner on a towel, I could wipe this back a long ways. Who amongst you is saying to themselves, this guy's crazy. He's totally destroying that nice little black and white painting that never hurt anybody. Why does he hate it so much? Anybody, or do you guys trust me?
Of course we trust you.
Do you? You're not like, oh, all right, well, good.
I have a
question.
Oh, go ahead
sorry,
with your.
Kate.
I want you guys to arm wrestle for it.
Yeah. Well, are you painting with just full paint, or is this now I don't know how to ask the question.
It is thinned down a little bit. There's a
It's
little
thinned
bit,
down, yeah.
It's got a little bit of the Galkid gel and the paint thinner mixed into it.
Okay, so how much of the Galkid? Like you said, like 90%?
95%.
Okay. How
and
much?
I'm putting this paint on thin. If I left it
25.
25.
Do about 75% Galkid.
75.
Gamsol.
Okay.
75% Gamsol, which is the paint thinner. 25% of the medium. And now,
Okay.
this I did not do in the other example, and the one I did previously.
Okay, I need to ask a question before you go on.
Okay.
Since red disappears, or is it red that disappears first, or is it yellow? Like why is the background more warm than the red in the foreground? I guess is what I'm asking, because of the color class.
Fantastic. And that is a really good question, because yes, it goes against what I teach, right? That things get cooler and lighter as they go back into space generally. Anybody want to answer the question?
I'm assuming it's because of the light.
Because I'm painting a very atmospheric, a very hazy day, and the light is behind everything. Again, if we think about the sheet of paper that I showed you, the light is behind it, and that light is coming through all that particulates of moisture in the air and catching it. So it's affecting, make sure I don't say infecting, but maybe it'll appear like it's infecting, affecting everything in between it. So if I think about atmosphere, again, like shimmering layers of gossamer, right? So on this foreground area, there's nothing, there's no sheet of gossamer between me and it. So it's going to be quite dark, quite crisp. Between me and this area and maybe this area in the foreground, there might be one layer of very thin gossamer. So it's a little bit more diffused, a little bit less crisp detail, maybe even a touch warmer, but I still have my shadow areas. And then as I go back, I just keep adding more and more sheets of gossamer until I get back here where I can hardly see the edge quality anymore. It's, let's say there's 20 pieces of gossamer between me and it. And you guys understand what I'm saying by that? Like real sheer fabric. So if you think about your atmosphere like a sheer transparent fabric, as you get further and further, you're adding more and more of those to look through. And it gets more and more washed out. If the sun was overhead or behind us or to the side or wherever else, the lighting could be completely different. When I talk about style, I don't know why I'm attracted to backlit things so much. It does become a little bit redundant, but I'm so curious about it and I just love it. And so I just keep doing it. And, maybe one day I'll be done and I'll have solved the mystery or whatever it is that I'm chasing. But for now, whenever I go out, it's what I want to photograph. It's what I want to look at. It's what I want to photograph. And that just, again, that's just a matter of taste. It's what's interesting to you. And I just love the effects of atmosphere, especially living here in the Pacific Northwest, where we just have so much atmosphere. Okay.
Michael,
Yeah.
can you hear me, Michael?
What's that? I lost you. I'm not able to hear you. Okay. So now what I did was mixed up a little bit of purple. It's going to do the same thing. It's just my French ultramarine with a touch of my quinacridone red. And I'm just going to splash that in a couple of my shadow areas. See what happens.
Which colors are you using?
That's French ultramarine and quinacridone. I just got to be careful that they don't touch too much of the yellow. Otherwise, they'll probably go towards brown, but I probably won't care about that too much either. I'll probably let my colors get pretty contaminated as I come in and wipe them away. So now, awesome. It looks beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and start wiping away a little bit, or just spreading it out, making it. So I'm going to start with my yellow areas, and I'm just going to lightly wipe it down.
Is that a dry towel?
Yeah, that was just a dry little towel, a little shop towel. I just want to make sure my stuff is kind of everywhere, my transparency. I'm letting the yellow and the red touch, but I'm trying not to touch the blue too much right now because I don't.
Hey, Michael, could I ask you real quick about the French ultramarine? Is there a regular ultramarine blue in oils, or is it just called French ultramarine? Because I'm trying to find the equivalent in acrylics, and there's nothing like that.
Sure, yeah, no, I think it's brand by brand. And I think it is actually just ultramarine, most brands anymore.
Okay, thanks.
And in fact, I just looked at my tube and it doesn't say French ultramarine, it just says it doesn't say French ultramarine, it just says ultramarine. So now I'm going into the reds a little more specifically, and I'm going to let it touch the blues a little more. Now I'm in the blues.
Michael, do we have an assignment for next week?
Yes, it's to make a luminist painting. However you decide to do it. Basically, the only difference between the tonalist painting is that I want you to explore different types of edge quality. Like in my foreground, I'll have some tighter, edges, a little more resolved, a little more thought out. And then I'm going to have my soft edges in the background or towards, wherever you want to use them. And so it's edge quality. We're opening it up. We're going to have more edges to use. And we're also going to be not as monochromatic, or we're going to be thinking more about temperature. So warms and cools versus just making a monochromatic tonalist painting. Does that make sense, everybody?
Thank you.
Michael, we're not seeing you large. We're seeing Kate large and you small.
Okay.
And I'm muted too.
How about now? Can you see me now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'll keep talking. Sorry, I thought I had it pinned. I wonder if I got unpinned during one of the breaks. All right, now every inch of this canvas is now covered. I'm not liking what's going on up here, so I will probably glaze in with more yellow, kind of all over a little bit, or I will just keep wiping this until it's a little more harmonious. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. Well, I've got like 5 minutes left here. I'm just gonna go ahead and add, oops, that was a lot. My Indian yellow, and I'm just gonna drag it across everything. I don't like, because this looks black and white still, and that looks colored. I don't know why the blue going over that didn't really do much. So I'm just gonna bring in my big brush and let's go ahead and squeeze out more Indian yellow. I just don't have enough paint left. Did that make sense why I kind of chose to do that? It got a little too washy. So let's, and that's the nice thing about glazing. I've got a little bit of time. Tried one way, didn't love it. So now I'm just kind of simplifying my colors. Still going to have the influence of the red and the blue, but not as much.
Well, when you go in to put thicker paint on, are you going to be working all over the painting or primarily on the foreground?
I get to decide that. I can, it's up to me. In that one that I showed you as an example, it was mostly onto the tops of the grasses and stuff. But I think in this one, I may really come off and build up some like glowing backlit leaves, maybe bring in a little more detail than I did in the smaller one. Yeah, I would like to push it in one way or another. Man, I'm really burning through this color. I just keep squeezing out Indian yellow. I wonder if the dark colors, the blacks, are more thirsty somehow. So I basically kind of wasted time by just making it more complicated. Now I've just kind of basically come back in with yellow everywhere.
Except your French ultramarine that's under that is now it's working to add the green.
Yes, you are right. That is very true. And you kind of can see that I'm still to a degree kind of going, okay, now I'm in the shadowy dark area. Now I'm in the, mid-tone area. Now I'm in the light area. So now I'm just kind of using the blues, that are in the dark. So I'm gonna have to scoot this up a little bit because it's locked behind my palette. Me against the clock. I'm like, oh, I got 2 minutes. Let's get it. But you can see how this is just a great base to build an oil painting on. I've got my design. I've got my values. I've got my kind of base underlying harmony color of colors that I could cover all of this if I wanted.
I'm having my class.
Showing.
It'll be over in about 10, 15 minutes, okay?
Peggy, your mic is open.
I thought Peggy was just our timekeeper. You're done. Just trying to make sure I got a little bit of paint everywhere so everything's kind of infected. And then before affected.
Sorry about that, everybody.
All right, so there it's mostly yellow. It does have a little bit of the red. I'm going to bring in a little more red because I feel like it's important in this area. I think that that's kind of one of the coolest parts about my reference. I'm having fun. It's interesting to just watch it going back and forth from one way to another, back again. And again, I just have the confidence that I've got a little bit of time to change my mind if I really feel like it. I went from pretty yellowy greeny, now it's got some oranges in there. I'm gonna get to the details, but right now the details aren't where it's at. These are just big overarching colors. If I wanted to, I could take and clean my brush off with my paper towel and move it around a little bit more. But I have one thing I want to show you guys before we disappear. And what I can do, if you guys are interested, is I will just finish off the glazing stage of this a little bit after class, which I think you guys understand for the most part. And then next week, I can come back in and show you building it up and doing detail. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. That way you don't feel like I've been ripping you off. And we can experiment with that other one that I started. Maybe we can try glazing with acrylics and see what happens. How's that sound? Good? To the one acrylic painter? All right, so now I'm grabbing my clean towel again. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and push a little harder. And I'm gonna pull off the light in the sky, the color in the sky, and whew, that's crazy. Sorry, it's so glary. Because it's so wet, maybe if I just turn these lights off. I'm hot in here too with all these lights. Okay, now you can see a little more structural. And now what I'm going to do is wipe off the lights in the sky. And I'm not going all the way up to the trees because I actually like that little bit of a penumbra, that little bit of a glowy effect right on the edges of the trees. I love that. My dark studio. Now I'm in the dark.
It's supposed to get up into the 80s today too.
Good God. I am out of practice being in the warm.
101 where I am.
Oh, good God.
And I'm also an acrylic painter. I've painted with oils three times now.
Okay, so what do you do? How do you keep your acrylics in motion when it's that warm?
Air conditioning.
It's not a plein air painter with your acrylics too much when it's
No. But I do use a lot of gel, acrylic gel.
Okay. So yeah, I'd be curious, you acrylic painters probably know more than I do about them. So tell me if I'm leading anybody astray or doing really like, man, you should never do that. Don't do what Mike's telling you. Your paintings will just catch on fire and disintegrate.
Well, isn't gesso an acrylic base?
Yep. That's exactly kind of the reasoning. It's more porous. It has pumice or marble or other, crushed things in it. Talc is something they use sometimes. Yeah, and you could add that to your acrylics actually too. The other thing I have been thinking about, again, I told you guys I have that matte medium, which I know loves acrylic paint because it's an acrylic medium. And I know that oil paints love it. So I have been contemplating making that my go-between. You know what I mean? They both relate to it really well. They both tolerate it really well. It's fun to paint oils on top of matte medium. So I'm contemplating letting that be my in-between layer, doing the acrylic painting, then going over it with matte medium, so that there is a good bond in between the two. These are things that I think about as I'm going to sleep. What if? What if?
Who is the other acrylic painter besides me and Jan?
I occasionally do some acrylic bases, exactly like what Michael's doing now.
Oh, you
Under
do?
my oils.
Have you ever had any problems?
No, not that I'm aware of, but then many other, who knows, those that are gone from me.
Yeah, well, people have a way of letting you know if their paintings fall under the.
I think that's probably true, but I know I've never had any problem with it at all.
Good, because yeah, I'm having so much fun. I don't know if this is a style or a technique that will, follow me and continue on. But I am having fun playing with it right now, and I'm having fun while I'm focusing in on values and design and color, like I'm doing this year with you guys. It just kind of makes sense. And so this glaze layer will dry pretty quickly. Actually, probably by tomorrow, it'll be pretty dry because of that Galkin medium that I threw in there. I'm experimenting with lighting it in different ways to see if we can see it, because it sure is shiny with it all being wet like that.
Michael, have you ever tried the water-based oils?
Yeah, when my daughter was born, I used them for a number of years. I never loved them. I always felt like I was giving up stuff, but the truth is they're so much better now. Like in the last couple of years, when I went to Italy last time with some friends to paint, one of the ladies, Lori McNee, was exclusively uses the water soluble paints, and
she is Cobra brand, I believe.
Does, yeah. And so she works with Cobra, and she and another friend of mine are the people that help kind of do some of the formulating. So they sent a bunch with her to give to me to try. And yeah, that's probably when I travel again, what I will be using, just because you can't travel with paint thinner. And I one of my very favorite paintings that I ever did in plein air, just a little quick one I did in Italy, is with the Cobra paints, and the mediums that she had are so much better than they used to be. And so, yeah, I could see myself doing it more and more.
Yeah, that's all I've been using. And I have several brands. Daniel Smith is excellent. I'm really enjoying that. I have some Cobra. I had some, Lucas, and some Grumbacher Max. But yeah, I started out with Winsor and Newton, but I was touch and go. But then again, those are my oldest ones. So I think you're right about them coming along.
Yeah, they're versatile. I love the idea of not having paint thinner in my studio, just for health and for the environment. It's really neat that you can just use water. That's such a neat thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm not so, I only use the water really to clean the brushes, to rinse them off in between. Yeah. I'm getting used to some of the mediums. Daniel Smith seems to have some of the better mediums that I've tried so far.
That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, they just, the smell is so much better. The ability to travel with them. There's definitely a lot of advantages to them. So I can definitely see them continuing to become more and more popular.
I'm wondering if it wouldn't facilitate putting water-based oils over acrylics like you're doing now.
Somebody somewhere said that recently. In my research, again, I love to kind of deep dive into something when I get into it. And somebody was saying that Was it even one of you guys? I don't remember where I heard it.
Could have been. I've been working with that. So, well, you'll see this. My next work with this class will be that. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, there is logic to that, right? That would work better than introducing oil on top of water, just introducing water instead.
No, I'm still using the oil. It's still their water soluble brand of linseed oil and other mediums. So
you're using oil paints with water soluble mediums?
Yes. Water soluble paints with water soluble mediums. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, that makes sense that might be better, but I don't know, is it that much better, or, you know what I mean? Like, if I continue with this, is that what I should be leaning towards? I don't know.
I think it's just a preference on what you like to have in your studio. It shouldn't really influence how you paint.
Right, but I mean, when you're mixing it, going over it with acrylics, I don't know.
Michael, before we end, I wanted to tell everybody that they're on Artbeat tonight on OPB, Oregon Public Broadcasting. There is a piece that is about Oregon Society of Artists and some really interesting painters who paint, and Michael has been involved with Oregon Society of Artists for a period of time, and so have I. In any event, tonight at I think 8 o'clock, Artbeat, Oregon Public Broadcasting. And I hope you watch it. I think it'll be fun.
Great. You said 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Thank you.
It'll be too hot outside by then for us Oregonians.
Well, exactly. But I get to go to a showing of Jordan Schnitzer's David Hockney paintings tonight in his warehouse. So I'm excited about that too.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's really neat. Yeah, let us know how that is.
It will be fun.
I guess we know, yeah. I'd love to go see a big Hockney show.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. All right, well, I'm just, taking paint off, putting it back on. I let the red get into a few areas that maybe I don't want it, because I kind of want some of the greenish feel. But like I said, I think, for an hour or two's work, I've really got a lot done.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, or this might be about all they do, but for me, I'll come back in and add texture, add other elements, change colors in the shadows. Maybe I'll bring some cool bluey foliage. I've got to investigate it. I'll look at it. I'll ask it what it wants, and hopefully it will tell me the truth. And hopefully this becomes something. But
Michael?
you guys, go ahead. I can stay on for a little bit longer. I just don't want to keep everybody here if you don't need to, but I can hang out for another little bit while I'm doing this. And if anybody has more questions. And thank you. I did get hear back from a number of you about wanting the book and calendar. I will follow up with everybody, and we'll just figure out how to get them to you. I'll just go to the post office and send them out before I even charge you. And that way I'll just know what the shipping is. It shouldn't be more than like $5. And we can just do it that way. And Michelle, sorry, I didn't give you the book right on the spot. That would have been a better choice. Okay, any questions you guys have? Otherwise, class is dismissed. Thank you so much. But if anybody does have questions or wants to hang out for a couple more minutes, I'll stay on.
I don't know what book you're talking about.
I made an art book. But it's my pictures. I'll go grab it. Okay, they're already half gone. Not trying to be a salesman by any means, but I only ordered, I ordered 60, but only 40 of them are in good shape. 20 of them, they misprinted. So I've got 40, now I have 22 left. But anyways, let me just turn on a better light again. Oh,
How much is it again, Michael?
I'm thinking like $25. And that way I make like $5 on it, a little more. But yeah, they're not cheap to make when you only print a couple books. So it'd be $25. They're a lay flat. They're really beautiful. One big picture over the whole back. There's not very much text in it. I contemplated, using some of my writing that I've been doing the last year, but I just figured, you know what, nobody cares. They can go to my website if they want to read. So it's just a book, and again, it lies flat, which is awesome. Super thick paper. Everybody feels like they're grabbing 3 or 4 pages, and mostly just really large photos of my paintings. Some of the pages do have more and smaller images, and yeah, just a bunch of that. So that's all it is. It's just basically I print it up as my portfolio. I do it every about 4 years, it seems like, and just kind of collect my better work. This one does have 2 or 3 paintings that were in my last book, if anybody happens to have that. And then I also, for the first time, made a calendar for 2022. So I'm just afraid I'm going to put them in my closet because it's so far till 2022 and forget about them until July of 2022 and then have to give them away. But same thing, just nice big pictures.
It's only 7 months away.
Only 7 months away. So don't stick it too deep in your closet.
Is it a lot of the same pictures in the book as in the calendar, or are they very different?
No, they're not very different. It's pretty much mostly, this has 12 pictures that I bet you every one of the ones in the calendar is in the book. I'm not gonna lie. I bet you they're a lot of the same. Yeah, in fact, the book service lets you load however many photos. So I just kind of used some of the same stuff.
Where do we communicate with you if we want the book?
However you want. If you guys, maybe on Facebook, if one of you just wants to start a little chat on there on our page, just like, hey, I'd like a book, and everybody else can just say they want a book after that, and I will, unless you want to put your address on there. Otherwise, I can direct message everybody, get your addresses, and I will just, it'll be $25 for the book. It's $15 for the calendar. And then I'm going to guess, I really am just totally guessing that it's about $5 for shipping and handling, but I will send it and then let you know how much you owe me. And I will.
And then do you have Zelle or Venmo that we can send you money?
Whatever way you want. I have all of those things.
Okay.
I accept money in
Venmo.
I accept Bitcoin.
Except Bitcoin.
Yeah. I don't give change though. If you pay me in Bitcoins, there's no change. You have to pay me $55,000 Bitcoin.
Hey, Michael, I have a question about, so when in past paintings that we've, in other classes, like let's say that you use the earth red as your sketching your shapes. And then later on, you know, that kind of shows through in a glowy way.
Yeah.
How does that compare with doing it this way, where then you sort of added the red as an outline?
I think it will be much the same. Yeah, because there are, even with my oil paintings where I do my value sketch and then I will tone that and then I'll paint over that. I just wanted to show too that glazing is not the end. It can be used throughout the painting. You just got to kind of think, what kind of a bond is it making? You know, is it going to be able to hold more paint on top of it? And I think that with this process, I'm making a pretty good bond. It's quite thin, you know, you can really see through it. And yeah, so just bear in mind, if you do this, you are experimenting with me. I don't want to be responsible for your masterpiece falling off one day. So if you do this, you're experimenting with me. I have done quite a bit of research. It seems like, there are some people that say not a great idea, especially Robert Gamblin being one of the biggest proponents for that, which, he's a very knowledgeable guy. But there are so very many people who do paint this way. And like you said, gesso is an acrylic paint. So there we go. Any other questions? I'm going to scoot over. Looks very atmospheric. I'll take a photo of it too, because it looks pretty crazy on the monitor right now. I think it's like short circuiting that camera. And remove pin. All right, I don't know how many people are left. Looks like 3 of you. Gallery view.
9.
There's more of them.
All right, anybody else have any questions as we say adieu?
No, but I really liked having some question and answers and learning from other people what they buy. And I like that part too.
Me too, especially today where my throat is so scratchy. Yeah, anytime you guys want to talk and help out,
Michael, did you have a successful show?
ish. It was very small crowds. Michelle came, so it made it very much more successful. It's wonderful to see her again in person and meet her husband. It was definitely fun. I just sold, yeah, you met my parents, your new neighbors. I only sold 4 smaller paintings.
Amazing.
Yeah, but that does happen a lot. A lot of times it's, people just seeing my stuff, and it takes a little while, especially for the big ones. I definitely had a lot of good feedback and a number of people that are interested in big commissions and things. So
that's good.
Yeah, I treat shows as meeting people, and as that, people will buy in the future if they like you and they know the story and there's something there to share, and they feel a connection. That definitely goes a long way. So hopefully I didn't scare too many people off. And
Do you think it was affected by the pandemic in terms of people buying and people showing up?
well, for sure, the showing up, they could only have 10 people in the gallery at the time.
Oh,
and it's
no.
a big gallery.
That's hard, Jen.
So it felt pretty empty.
I know.
I talk to people all the time. On Sunday, when Michelle came out, I just moved outside and painted out front of the gallery and just talked to people as they kind of came and went, which is super fun, but it's not a very good sales tactic when you have to go, my paintings are in there. But it was fun. And I was just kind of tired of just standing in there after 2 days. I would definitely say it's successful. I'm proud of the paintings. I am curious if we didn't put up too many paintings. I think there is something to be said for too many options, and there's no shortage. There was like, how many paintings do you think they had up, Michelle? Like 20 something. With my other galleries, I even tell them I only want you to have up 5.
Also, I noticed they were putting one up, and I said, oh, did one sell? And they said something like, yeah, we're putting another one in its place. So I wonder if a strategy might be to where there's an empty spot that says sold, might be better to suggest that shortage.
Yeah, and like my most successful show out there, I sold 17 paintings in one day, and everybody left the paintings. Nobody just walked off with them, which they were doing
Right.
week. And when you have red dots all over the place, people are like, it's not my favorite, but I got to take it. I got to grab it while it's available. So there is all that strategy. I'm sure, you guys probably know more about sales and all that than I do from whatever.
Not really.
Well, maybe it's fun. But that's why I pay the gallery. They need to know that it's their job. I just give them the best work I can and try to be a nice guy, so I don't scare off customers and bathe and stuff. And
Well, we certainly love you, Michael.
I have so much fun, and I do believe that the paintings will sell. They're good paintings.
Of course they will. I want a big one now. I just have a little one.
Oh, good. Yeah, you need a big one. Little ones are just
I need a big one.
got your hook. Now you need the big one.
All right.
Oh, cool. You guys are awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love your energy, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. And I'll write it on the Facebook page. We have a couple weeks for this one because this is class 3, right? So 4. So I was going to do 2 weeks with this and 2 weeks with Impressionism. So you can do more than one painting, and I will spread the word on the Facebook group. I can't believe I totally forgot. So 2 weeks. You can either build it up slowly or do a couple or do bigger or whatever you want.
Did you say you're going to continue this one next week?
Yep. If I can stay away from it, I already want to just keep painting on it. So I got to.
Michael, are you going through the summer with another series?
I don't think I am. Our calendar's already filling up. My family loves to travel and camp, and
Got it.
my friends love that. And
So we'll have to wait until the fall.
I believe so. I have the workshop at Manuka, and then I am slowly designing one for Cannon Beach, possibly. But that's all I've got planned.
Okay.
I like to plein air paint too.
All right.
Get out there.
All right.
And I picked up another gallery, so they need work. So yeah, I got plenty to do.
Good.
Awesome, guys.
Well, we'll miss you. Bye. Thank you.
You can always call or write.
Oh, I know. I may see you at OSA.
That's true.
Hope so.
Awesome, you guys. All right, everybody take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lovely day.
Yeah, too. Enjoy the show tonight.
Yes, I can hardly wait.
That's wild. Yeah, I would be giddy.
Well, I feel that way because Jordan's, I mean, I don't know what else we'll see there, but it should be really interesting. So.
For sure. I look forward to hearing about it. Sneak a couple pictures if you can.
All right, I'll try to.
Photos.
He might say no. No, we don't do that in here. Anyway, thank you.
Awesome. Take care.